EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, good morning, everybody. Sports Stage, Tone DeShields, Rob Ellis hanging with you on this Friday Eve. Tone, hope you're doing great, man. Always a pleasure hanging out with you each and every day. How you feeling, man?
I feel great, my friend. What do I always say, Rob? What do I always say? I feel good and I smell good.
Smell good, look good.
That's what I'm talking about.
Sound good.
Hey.
So let's say hi to everybody. Let's say hi. Flexing and Stepping, M. Reyes, Jalen, I'm awake. Cool Ranch, David, Rob from Temple, Wawa is great. Okay. Ken, what is up? Philly 07, Teresa. Who else do we have here? I want to make sure I'm getting everybody. Twiz, what's up, Twiz? What is up, Ken? I think I got Ken. Ken, you got two. But Sills, we're 10-1. Bry Guy. Dark Skin Carson. I don't even know what. I don't want to dive into that one. Let's see. Slagger. Gotcha. I think I got everybody. Chuck, what's up, Chuck? Hope everybody's well. Andres. Jack. Oh, Jack.
Hey, Rob,
my guy. Jack Cal.
Rob, do you see what Slagger said?
No. Do I want to know? Someone spreads all his money on Team Gear. Is that one?
Yeah, that one. That's
Was
not
there
true,
another one?
Slagger.
Do I even want to know what the other one was? I don't think I do.
No. That's what I'm talking about.
I do. Let me see the hoodie, man. Let me see what's going on with the hoodie.
Oh no,
I
this is something.
I see the eagle wings. Stand up.
This is something personal I made.
Chalk it up.
This is from the sports network that I was building before I was working with JAKIB
I got
Sports.
you. So so interestingly enough, my boy Cal checks in. I got the Guinness hoodie on, and Cal's in Dublin, and that's where the Guinness factory is. And I tell everybody, if you go to Dublin, if you ever get a chance to go, first of all, Tony, you love Dublin. Let me tell you something. It's a great city. But if you go, do the tour of the Guinness building. They give you a tour, and it's not just what you think, like, oh, I'm in a factory and there's the big, giant kegs. Or it's not like that. It's awesome. And they give you a dinner at the end, a steak dinner.
You know what's funny? I'm drinking a lot of beer, but I don't think I've ever had Guinness.
Guinness is good. It's not something like if you're having one or two, it's great. It'll fill you fast. It's not like if you're out with your boys and you're throwing a few back, you're not going to have a ton of Guinness.
Got it. It's one of those. Okay.
Yeah, it's not like you having a light beer, you can have. It's like drinking water, frankly, and you know what I mean. Yeah. But if you're not saying you could have a few, you could have
No, I know what you mean. No, I know what you mean. It's certain beers that are just heavier on you.
It's heavier.
And it's usually those dark beers like Yingling. I can't. Yes. I'm more of a Yingling guy, and for me it's Corona, then Yingling, and then I'm pretty much open after that. But you're right, Yingling sits on you a little heavier. I can knock back Coronas like nothing.
Cal, you got to do the tour, man. Trust me. If you're in Dublin, you got to do it. Yeah, I'm with you. Like I can sit there and throw back. I like Yingling too, by the way. But Coors Light, Miller Light, whatever. Any of those kind of light beers are just boom, 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 boom.
You know what I started?
I like Mexican beer too, by the way. What Slagger said, I like Mexican.
You want to know the first beer I fell in love with, and I was hooked on it. This was in college. Miller High Life.
Oh yeah,
the champagne of beers.
That's an old school. The champagne of beers is old school, man. And I'll tell you what, it's good. I don't mind a Miller High Life.
No, it's delicious.
Yeah, man.
It's so refreshing.
The old heads know what they're doing. Who are throwing back some champagne of beer, man. They know what they're doing.
I haven't had a beer in God knows how long.
Yeah. Oh, so are you more like you got more to like the spirits, wine? Like, what are you? I'm not a wine guy or a
I
spirits
just haven't been
guy.
drinking lately. I just haven't been drinking much lately at all.
I don't get out much either, man.
These days I'm a social drinker.
Yeah.
So I mean we have some wine in the house, but you know, I don't just crack open a bottle of wine on the weekend. My wife may do that, but lately we haven't really been drinking that much.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with. Look, it's hard to find the time, man. I know that sounds crazy, but
No, that's exactly what it is. It's hard to find the time that I know I'm going to have just to relax and just really enjoy the buzz.
yeah. And my only other issue is, and I'm pretty lucky that I don't generally get really hungover. I'm knock on wood in that sense, right? Because I usually will shut it down at a decent time and get an okay night's sleep. But
you're probably awful when you're hungover.
I'm not good when I'm hungover, dude.
You're probably awful.
Well, but here's the problem. Because I can't sit still. Like if I'm useless and banged up and laying on the couch, my mind is a disaster. I need to be able to get up and be productive just for my own edification. So that's one of the reasons why I try not to get too heavy into it where I can't even function. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's been a long time since I've been
same here.
Hungover. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Nonetheless.
Yeah.
Good talk. Great way to start the morning, you guys. Start your morning with a beer.
And the best, I'll tell you, the best for me at least too. Obviously, you got to stay hydrated and whatnot. But the best for me, the best cure for a hangover is if you get a decent night's sleep. If you don't get a decent night's sleep, I think you're in some trouble, man.
Yeah. And also, if you guys are looking for a quick recovery, Pedialyte.
Pedialyte's good.
Pedialyte's really good for you in the mornings you wake up.
Yep.
Get you going. You know, get you a nice breakfast in you.
Yeah.
You'll be all right by 1 p.m. depending on what time you wake up.
Breakfast in you and take care of your business in the library, if you know what I'm saying. If you can do that too, you'll be good to go.
Absolutely.
All right. There you go, kids. Never say we aren't here to help.
Right.
All right. So
you have to be 21 years or older to consume this message.
Correct. And if you're not, you hang in there someday. All right. So a couple things. We don't have any kind of updates, at least as of right now. We may as the show goes on. But any kind of updates on Joel Embiid and where things are with the knee. Here's what we know. He was sent home from the road trip to get further testing. He will not play against the Jazz tonight as they close out the road trip. So we're just, we're in limbo right now. I want to get back to that in a minute, but let me give you the big story too here. The Commanders are hiring Dan Quinn as their head coach.
So it's official now.
That's official. So the Cowboys, DC, formerly of the Falcons, formerly of the Seahawks back in the day as a DC, whatever. He goes to Washington. So the last spot is filled.
In the division. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I always try to look at things from an Eagles perspective. I know there was a disaster in that division, that wild card game against Green Bay for everybody across the board. But I thought the guy was a pretty good defensive coordinator. So I'm glad to see the Cowboys lose him.
Absolutely. It's funny. Prior to Dan Quinn getting there, they had that same amount of talent, but didn't really know what to do with it. So he goes there with the same players. I can't remember who was the DC before him, but regardless, Dan Quinn comes there
in Dallas.
I can't remember his name, but he was an older guy, and everybody was like, "Yeah, he's aged himself out of the league. They need to move on from him."
Yeah.
But Dan Quinn comes in, flipped that defense on its head, made them a top 5 defense back-to-back seasons. I think 2022 and 2023, and now he gets another shot at a head coaching job. I think this is going to be the last hurrah for him. So hopefully he can generate some production out of the Washington Commanders organization. Not sure how much he will be able to get done, just given their circumstances. So he has to know, and they have to know, this is going to be a bit of a project, just in terms of their culture, in terms of personnel.
Yeah,
they're still figuring out the quarterback position, so we'll see how the thing turns out. But overall, congratulations to Dan Quinn on the new opportunity.
So here's all the spots all filled. So Commanders Dan Quinn, Mike McDonald to the Seahawks, Raheem Morris to the Falcons. Panthers, Dave Canales, Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, Titans, Brian Callahan, Raiders, Antonio Pierce, and Patriots, Jared Mayo. So every spot.
Eagles, Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore / Vic Fangio. You have to get them both in there, Tony. Yeah, there's a slash there.
Oh, man, no. Yeah. I need to stop taking jabs at Nick Sirianni, man.
Well, all right. So let's hit a couple of these things. Then I'm glad you brought it.
Because let me stop fronting. Like, as a person, I like Nick Sirianni. Like, seriously, as a
hard guy not to like. Yeah.
He's likable in my opinion. And I think I just understand his type. You know what I mean? The emotional, the passion. I understand that. But I'm just not a fan of how he does certain things with the team, and that's pretty much it. It's never personal with me. So
yeah. And look, as we talked about a lot, the big question with him is, we know the players like him as a dude. Nobody questions that. He takes the bullets for them. They all like him as a person. There's no disrespect as far as that goes, what kind of guy he is. But the question is, do they respect him as a coach? And I'm curious what your take is, because you and I were batting this about the pre-show meeting, but Jason Kelsey was did it, his podcast with his brother Travis, the New Heights podcast. And he really did. He addressed the elephant in the room in that he said, look, I know he's being asked basically, what are you going to do now that you're not scheming up the offense? What's your role as a CEO? And he did go above and beyond, the endorsement that he gave Nick. And it wasn't, again, I'm just telling you, I've heard enough of these where it's kind of like, yeah, we love Nick as a coach. Hopefully we get a turn where it's just BS. He really went to bat for him and talked about he's one of the best coaches, if not the best coach he's had in terms of addressing things, correcting them in the moment, doing the kind of things that a CEO has to do. Now, your take was interesting in that Kelsey's part of the older faction of guys. Do the younger guys feel the same?
Right. And, and you brought this up. The younger guys are more on the Switzerland side. They're very
quiet for the most part, dude.
They're very stoic. They're very, just doing their jobs.
And that's only natural. Whenever you start someplace, you're not looking to make waves right away. You're just kind of feeling your way around to an extent. So I understand it.
Exactly. And then, some of those guys, it's just in their DNA to just go about things as business, as usual.
Yeah.
So I think they asked Devontae Smith about on Up at Adams, what went wrong. And he was like, look, we didn't make plays, man. We weren't good enough. We weren't as good as we thought we were. Overall, Jason Kelsey, his endorsement is interesting to me because we still don't know if he's going to be here or not.
Yeah, we don't.
I think he will, but if he's not, how much stock can we put into the endorsement if it won't have a direct impact on the guys in the building if he's not there? But I think it's time that we start looking towards or looking forward to the next crop of leaders within this organization. And that's what's going to be the challenge for the Philadelphia Eagles. Not saying that we don't have any leaders in the room, but I believe their next challenge, along with repairing the defense, is establishing the next core four. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the next group of foundational players on your team, right? I think we see Jalen Hurts as that guy as of right now. And they have to maximize his time as long as he's a Philadelphia Eagle. And who knows if he'll get a second contract. He just signed the first one, so I know where I'm looking way far ahead. But, if we look at Jalen Hurts as a core member of this team, you got to start looking for other guys as well. Okay, who's going to be the guys that we can see being here for the long haul? I think one guy that I see strong potential in being a core guy for the remainder of his career in Philadelphia is Jordan Mailata.
Oh, for sure. And he went to bat for Nick. He did. He was basically like, I can't even believe you're asking me this question when they were cleaning out the lockers. I mean, I was a genuine response. Like, is this really a thing that people are talking about firing him? He did say that.
Yeah. Mailata is as genuine as they come.
There's no filter.
None. Yeah. Not at all. So I think he's one of those guys I look at and I say, that's a core guy for the remainder of his career. Is there anybody else on this team that you look at? And
I would say Devontae Smith for sure.
I see Devontae. I think they're going to. I think it's no question they paid Devontae. I think the real question is how they balance the cap with AJ Brown and Devontae's contract. That's going to be the real challenge. I know the cap is going up, but it only goes up by so much. That's going to be the real thing to watch, how they balance those contracts, if they can balance them at all. But okay, I like that. Mailata, Devontae Smith. Anybody else that you think about in this roster? Because I think it's important.
Yeah, I don't know and I'm being honest with you. I don't know the personality of Landon Dickerson well enough. Like, he seems like a fun sort of good old boy dude, right? But I don't know that he's going to be a vocal. It's, you know what the thing is too, Tone. Kelsey's an exception. It's hard for offensive linemen to really be viewed like super outspoken way too.
Well, here's the thing. Lane Johnson is really not. I mean, he speaks, But Lane Johnson is actually a very low key dude when you really think about how he carries
is.
himself. You know, Kelsey's the more so the podcast that you see him outside, you know, ripping the shirt off, and Lane is more so the calm, cool, collected one. So I think that's where Landon Dickerson falls. I do see Landon Dickerson being an integral piece on this team in the long term. The Eagles invest in their O line like no other. So Mailata, Landon Dickerson. I've also had opportunities to see Landon Dickerson. You know, just seeing how he interacts with his teammates. The Eagles put out a lot of documentary style content on their YouTube channel, and I got to see how Dickerson carried himself from his rookie year up
He's
until
a
now.
well-liked guy. Yeah,
And he's well liked in the locker room. He's actually funnier. He actually has a more of a personality on him than you may think. Him and Mailata have a great relationship. Obviously, they play next to each other.
right.
So okay, so Devontae
All right,
Smith,
so let me go.
Mailata,
Here's a problem. Herein lies a problem.
Okay.
You go to the other side of the ball.
And that's what I was low key trying to phase us to, right? Who are the core guys on defense?
I sit here right now having no idea what Jordan Davis is going to turn out to be. None.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm the head man of the Jalen Carter fan club. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big believer in Jalen Carter.
Same here.
I don't know that he's a vocal guy. I don't know that he isn't. I don't know. He's a rookie. You got to give that guy a little bit of time.
Yeah, of course. I want to let guys mature. You know what I mean? I'm older than I'm 29, and I feel like I'm still trying to figure out my maturity a little bit. So again, I know what it's like to be 22.
So the problem here's the problem you have, Tone. There's no linebackers, none. I unless you believe in Nakobe Dean, and I put him as more of a question mark than even Jordan Davis at this point. There's no corners that I think are long term. Maybe Ringo might be, but we're still a long way from knowing that.
We're a long way from knowing that. Yeah.
I think Blankenship is a guy on the team, but I don't know that Blankenship is going to take a leadership role just because I don't know that he's going to be prominent enough. So there aren't a ton of them, and it's just the way the roster's constructed that there aren't a ton of them right now.
Right, and I think that's an issue for the Philadelphia Eagles. Right, that defense has been filled with more mercenaries than anything.
Correct.
And it's hard to establish a core group of guys when you're not drafting well. The reality is your core guys that are typically there for the long haul are guys you typically draft. And in order to be taken seriously as a core guy, you have to, your leadership has to be married with your production.
Yeah.
And the sad part about it is they haven't gotten that level of production on the defensive side. I mean, Jalen Carter, obviously a rookie, but we're not looking at him to be a leader just yet. But does he have potential to be a core guy going forward? Sure. But again, it's going to come down to how he carries himself, on and off the field, and again, the production. Can he stay healthy? Jordan Davis, he has the personality, in my opinion, to be a core guy. He's an accountable guy, but again, how accountable is he when it comes to his conditioning? The endurance, the diet and nutrition. I think that's going to be his determining factor to see if he's a core guy going forward. But that's going to be the challenge for Howie Roseman, right? That's been the Philadelphia Eagles challenge overall, drafting players outside of the D-line. If you're not in the D-line, they struggle with assessing you. And I'm having a hard time understanding the disconnect there, right? If when it comes to the trenches, the Eagles understand it.
Yeah.
But they can't find guys, in the DB room or in the linebackers. They struggle with evaluating those kind of guys. So I'm really curious to see where they go. But overall, they have 9 draft picks. That includes the comp picks. Maybe the Eagles get their hands on a couple more, but they need to have a strong draft. They have to, because they can't keep handling their defense like this, Rob. It's not sustainable.
Yeah, and we're going to get into Howie and what he's got in front of him at 12 o'clock, and it's a lot. Okay, a lot. Here's the other thing I wanted to touch on, Tone. I know there's been chatter about AJ Brown. I see some folks in the chat that they want him gone, et cetera.
I think those people that say that are trolling.
Well, I mean, either way, I mean, the cap hit is $41 million for him to be traded. So he's not going to get traded. And I know yesterday when he was asked about this, and Chris Franklin's joining us at 11:30, and Chris Franklin talked to both AJ and Devontae. So I'm looking forward to hearing get Chris's impression, because he talked to them directly, right? But when those two guys were on, and I saw the clip from Kay Adams up in Adams, I thought I thought AJ's response was very sort of matter of fact in that he said, look, man, I've been there before. I got traded. I wasn't necessarily expecting that to be the case when I got traded from Tennessee. But, hey, I got to just worry about my family, et cetera, or something to that effect, right? So, you know, he wasn't like, hey, I don't want to go anywhere. And I think people are reading into that with the thought of he wants to go. I don't think he wants to go. I think that because he's been through it, you know, before, I think he's trying to not be as emotionally invested, you know, as he could be, and just be ready for however it, you know, plays itself out, basically.
Yeah, you can get jaded, you know, in this regard, right? When once you get traded, you know, you become numb to anything else after that. You know what it's like. You've been there. You know, you take everything people say to you with a grain of salt.
Right.
And I completely understand his sentiment. I can't.
So there it is. So you can.
I didn't have any problem with what he said, by the way.
No,
I didn't have any problem with his response. Nothing at all. I felt like he had. Well, what else did you expect him to say? I mean,
no,
not you, but the people. What else did you expect them to say? You know,
I think people want him to be like, I want to be an Eagle for life, and that's just the reality of this day and age. Not most guys will throw that out there, but you look at it, 42.5 is the dead cap that you would have if he's moved. So he's not going anywhere. And by the way, I don't want him going anywhere, man. There have been too many years.
I don't either.
Yeah, where the Eagles didn't have playmakers. You
know,
know,
I definitely don't want him going anywhere. You know, and you know, I always try to reiterate this. You know, when it comes to my premise about trading AJ Brown, because I think some people still think I want him gone for some reason, and I don't. I want AJ Brown here for as long as that's feasible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If they can find a way to make the money work, I would love to keep AJ Brown. But I'm just looking at it from the business perspective and the long-term ramifications of trying to maintain two $20+ million wide receivers on your books. That's going to really limit what you're able to do on the defensive side. I mean, doesn't that logic make sense, Rob? You know,
it does. But here's what I believe. I believe that if there's the greatest superpower that Howie has is cap manipulation. He's the king. If there's anybody who can figure out how to get Devontae and AJ situated, it'll be him.
Yeah. Now, I will say this though, because of those guys, you know, contracts, current contract and future contracts, and their talent level, I want to welcome Eagles fans to this reality. AJ Brown may not be moved this year or next year. He may not even be moved the year after that. But I want you guys to know, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are not finishing their career. Well, I think Devontae will. AJ Brown and Devontae Smith aren't going to be together until the end of time.
Oh, I agree with that. Totally.
You know
I mean, look, this is football, man. Tom Brady played elsewhere. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I don't think that at all.
Yeah. They're not going to be they're not going to be on the same field together for the remainder of Devontae's career. You know what I'm saying?
No.
AJ Brown's going to be here until further notice. The contract has him here up until 2026, 2027. I think he's an unrestricted free agent. So at that point, that's going to be a conversation for then. But for now, he's the best wide receiver on the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't want him to go anywhere, but I just want people to keep in mind that the Eagles are likely weighing all their options and how they can rebuild this defense over the course of the next couple of years, because they see their clock is not based on AJ Brown's contract or anybody else. It's based on Jalen Hurts' contract. That's their clock. They're looking at it like, okay, the first year of that contract is kicked in. We got 4 seasons? You know, 4 seasons to get this thing right.
Kicking off this season. Yep.
Yeah, kicking off this season. So we got about 4 or 5 seasons to figure out, you know, what's the long-term answer? Can we compete for a Super Bowl? That's the clock they're on.
Yep.
So these next few years, you're going to see the Philadelphia Eagles taking a lot of big risks, a lot of big swings, you know, to try to put themselves back in Super Bowl contention.
I got you. All right, let's get a timeout. Let's talk to Chris Franklin when we come back. NJ.com covers the Birds. Talked to Devontae Smith and AJ Brown yesterday. So we'll hit Chris with any number of things regarding the Birds and, of course, his conversation with those guys. That's Tone. I'm Rob. We're Sports Take. Let's talk about Bravo Pizza of Havertown. Family owned since 1985. Alex and the crew, a great job every single day. Fresh, homemade food, not sitting under some heat lamp. 20 different styles of pizza daily. They have slices to go. They have specialized pizza your way. They don't just do pizza. They do fresh pasta, sandwiches, wraps, wings, salads, Bravo Pizza is also committed to the community. They have fundraisers for charity, schools, little leagues, where the proceeds go to those organizations. You can follow them at the Bravo Pizza of on Instagram and Facebook for daily specials and promotions. They're at 1305 Westchester Pike, Manoa Shopping Center in Havertown, 1305 Westchester Pike, Manoa Shopping Center, Havertown, PA. Give them a call, 610-446-3810, 610-446-3810. Bravo Pizza of Havertown.
I remember getting my heart broken when they lost the Super Bowl in 2004. We're big Eagles fans. We moved to South Philly because of the Eagles. When they won, we went straight to Broad Street, and everybody was going nuts over there, and it was just a memory that you'll never forget.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Back. Appreciate you hanging with us today. Stone to Shields. I'm Rob Ellis for Sports Take. All right, joining us now. Love his coverage of the Eagles for NJ.com. You can follow him on Twitter at CFranklin News, and of course, NJ.com was where you can catch all of his work covering the Birds. Chris Franklin. Morning, Chris. How are you? Oh, you muted, Chris. Muted. There we go. No, it's still muted. Okay. I don't know.
There we go. There we go.
I got to put myself in a better job to put myself to make sure that the mute's not done.
You got to go Andy Reid on us, man. You got to do a better job, Chris.
Horrible.
Oh, my man, Chris. How you feeling, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's been an interesting few days, to say the least.
Yeah, right. So for people who may not know, and again, hop on NJ.com. You can check it out. You sat down with AJ and Devontae as well yesterday. So I don't know, man. Let's go through it. Like, what were your initial impressions of where they are from a headspace perspective? You got AJ, who everybody, it's been very weird, and Devontae, we know, at some point is probably looking at an extension. What are the spirits of both of those two guys?
Right now, I think they're just reassessing everything. There's a lot going on. The whole with AJ having to deal with the trade stuff that came out of nowhere based off of a poll, and yeah, it's looking like he's like, what's going on? And you have that, and then Devontae, I think you're looking at that. He's looking at potentially like he's going in there. They're all trying to recess. They're trying to get used to Brian Johnson not being there, which it seems like they were still like kind of shocked that it was still that happened. Then look at Kellen Moore, who they haven't really talked to yet and haven't really got a sense of system, but they just want him to, if since the moves were made, hey, just come in and just improve this offense if that's the case. But it looks like they're they're in recovery mode right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because the AJ Brown trade speculation, here's where I am with it, Chris. I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles are in any position to trade him this season, maybe not even next season, but I just feel like this team, because they have so much to rebuild, especially on that defensive side of the ball, I think they're weighing all their options and how they can get from point A to point B when it comes to getting that defense back on track. Speak on the distance the Philadelphia Eagles have to travel to at least get this defense to being respectable again.
Well, I'll start with the AJ stuff. I don't even think it's even there. I don't even think it's even crossed their minds at the point right now, unless he goes into an office and goes, "Oh, I'm done with this one." I don't think it's not where that. He's always said come that, but the whole road to getting this defense back together. Do we have enough time in the show to talk about?
You got as much time as you need, Steph. You got as much time as you need, brother.
All right. I look at this. I look at it. I think it's more of a restructure. Like, they don't have to change everything. They don't have to change a lot because it's basically everybody knows it's pretty much the same system with Fangio, and they've been trying to implement it this way. But the two areas they really need to invest in are linebacker and an edge. And the reason why I say edge is now you still have Hassan Reddick, but he's going to command a big salary because of the way he's done. So you're going to have to find a backup for that. And your hope is Nolan Smith. Josh Sweat, he's not too far off from hitting to get a new deal himself. And then you're always looking for that. You got BG, who's going to be in his final year. So you're going to need to rebuild that edge thing. And I think they need more pressure coming off that edge and for the future, because everybody's getting older and you don't know if you're going to have the cap space. They really need to do that. And linebacker, we saw what happened in his last two championship games. When I look at the 49ers and I look at the Baltimore Ravens, I look at two teams that had really stellar linebacker play that got them in the position to be in a championship game. When you have the first level of that defense with the defensive line and that third level with top 10 cornerback, still an elite quarterback. Just from what I've seen when he was playing, I still think he's still up that level.
Who did you say, Chris? Because we lost you for 1 second.
Okay, I say when you look at Darius Slay, I still think he's elite. I really think I still think he's an elite cornerback when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
I still think you have a lot of other pieces in that secondary you can work with. Sidney Brown when he gets the ACLs back. So you just have a void in the middle there. It's so many questions with Kobe Dean's knee, with Van Summers, the only other guy you have right now under contract. And you have, when you look at Zach Cunningham, it looks like he's more and more, he probably is the lead guy to be coming back here. So it's so much. Scheme needs to be better. The pressure has to be better. It's just, in that second level for sure has to be a lot better.
All right, so let's go there. In your opinion, and how we kind of defended the linebacker thing at that press conference last week, and threw Cunningham's name out there specifically, but also referenced the Super Bowl years when they had good linebacker play. So take Cunningham out for a minute. Yeah, they did have pretty good linebacker play in the Super Bowl years, but they don't now. So how much do you think he'll prioritize that? How much is going to be handed to Nakobe Dean? Like, is he, in your opinion, is he penciled in as a starter, or is he going to have to earn it?
I think he's penciled in as a starter, and I think they use one of those first three picks on a linebacker, and for the first 53. I really think they're going to use one of those in that, because can't go into the same situations you had last year. And when you're looking back on it, how big is that letting go Christian Ellis looking now? Because at least with Ellis, you had he made it was bumpy road, but when he got comfortable, he started to make a few plays. So now you don't have a cost-effective linebacker with you who can flow the holes and plug up gaps. It's big. So I think that we're really looking at next year. Dean's going to be the leader of that defense, calling the plays. And he just, I really see them getting a guy. I know Trotter's name's been thrown out there a lot. There's a couple guys I like as well too. I think one of those second-round picks are really going to go to a linebacker this year.
With Vic Fangio coming in, typically he's had pretty solid linebacker play wherever he's been. In order to make his defense work. How much influence do you anticipate Vic Fangio having on the shape of this defense, especially knowing how the Philadelphia Eagles do business? They tend to keep a lot of things close to the vest. How much influence do you think Vic Fangio will have being the first year DC in Philadelphia?
I think it's going to be somewhat similar we saw when Jim Johnson was with Andy Reid. I think he garners that much respect, and since he's the grandfather, like he's the guy who built this system, he's going to have a lot. I think he's going to have a lot to say in the type of the traits that the guys have. He's going to let the front office do their thing and scout the guys, but when it comes to the traits and influence, and then if it comes to a time like, hey, who do you think? I think he's going to have a lot to say in what that happens, and he should have, because you tried this you had three straight defensive coordinators the last 3 years. One because guy had coach job, one didn't work. Well, 4 technically. I'm still counting Patricia. I don't care.
You should.
You should that one too. So, hey, that's one of the things. You know what? Do your thing. They're going to turn the offense over that way to Kellen Moore. Fangio, I think, is going to have full run on that defense and have a good say of what happens there.
For people who may not be, he's been around forever, Chris, but it's still the same sort of philosophy. Obviously, he's the architect of it, but it's don't give up the big play. Where does he differentiate, I guess, off of what we've seen from Desai and Patricia? How will it look different with him? Obviously, you need players. I get that. But just philosophically, if you had the players, how would he do things different than what we saw?
I think you see a lot more better disguising of the way the coverages are. And we all know in the NFL, it all comes down to seconds when it comes to there. And it's basically it's like almost like a car game. Like making sure that quarterback holds the ball 1 extra second so you get your defensive line and they're able to get home. And so I think you'll see a lot more elaborate coverage disguises when it comes to coverages. It's like, give the quarterback, it's coming down. This looks like it's going to be not only man to man, but that match concept. Like, I think it's going to be cover 2 on the back end, and then all of a sudden you see it go single high. You're like, wait, and everything goes helter skelter. So I think you'll see a lot more changes in that aspect. The one thing that they really need to work, and this goes back to the linebacker one, they need somebody in the middle of that field to cover, and because especially when you go back there, and you need communication. So you're relying on young guys who had issues last year with trying to communicate with that match concept, matching up. You're going to need them to be all on the same page and say, okay, you got this guy, because the one drawback with this defense is there will be a lot of blown coverages if you're not on the same page. And we saw what happened when it really hits the fan on there. So that's where I think he can cover up some of that stuff on there, but it's still going to come down to a lot of communication and back seven play.
Chris, I want to check the temperature with you when it comes to Kellen Moore. He's a guy who's worked with Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert over the past several years of his career. He's been a 5-year OC, 34 years old. He's historically only worked with drop back guys, Dak Prescott. He's not really a dual threat quarterback. Not afraid to get mobile if he needs to, but he's more so a guy that's going to live in that pocket. Justin Herbert, again, a guy that's not afraid to get mobile, but he's going to live in that pocket primarily. But then you add in Jalen Hurts to that fold, the guy who was legitimately a dual threat quarterback. And we saw the Philadelphia Eagles trying to transition him into being more of a pocket guy, but I'm having a hard time seeing the connection between a Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts because of the quarterbacks Kellen Moore has worked with previously. What was your instant reaction to the Kellen Moore hire? Do you think it's a fit? What do you anticipate Kellen Moore bringing to the table when it comes to this offense?
When that first happened, I was shocked because I really thought it was going to be Kingsbury's job. I thought that would be marry it more to maximize what Hurts could really do, seeing what he did early in his career, and given that the concepts you can use with his offense, and I think it would have lent it more. And the fact it came down on Saturday night wasn't fun either, but that is another thing when it came down there. But when I look at what Moore, if I'm trying to overlay what they're trying to do, I see them trying to turn them in. They're basically, to me, I think they're going to try to turn them into Dak in a way of I think he's more. We all know he's more mobile than Dak. Use it. He's only use it more for escape. Throw him maybe not, well, you're gonna keep the RPOs, but throw in a couple design runs here or there just to throw the threat to the defense. But the one area I think he's really going to help Hurts with is he's got when he gives those pre-snap motions, especially late, to give him an extra tell, to give him more intel to make those decisions and to make it easier for him. I think especially when the one thing I think we have former quarterbacks. I know Brian Johnson was and everything else, but one thing I like that you have when you have a former quarterback is they can get in the mind of what Hurts going to be thinking and seeing. I think at least having that, throwing in more motion, will give him more intel in order to be able to use it and spread the ball around more effectively in that aspect. But I still think Cliff Kingsbury would have been. I would have been very intrigued to see what Cliff would have brought to this offense. I think it would have been very. Yeah, I think it would have fixed a couple things. It's not all, and they'll still use the RPO stuff. But I just like the potential dynamic it would have brought.
That's interesting. I've been saying this, screaming this all week and last week too. I want, and again, he's got to be healthy, but I want them to get back to what they were doing 2 years ago with the RPOs, with him, more design runs. I know there's an injury risk, Chris, but I think you're taking away too much of what this guy does. Do you think they just view it as it's a $250 million investment and he's never going to run as much as he ran, a couple of years back, or at least by design?
Well, I think the RPOs are going to stay. I think the Chargers last year, I think they were top 10. I got to go back and look at my numbers, but I think they were in top 10 RPO usage as well, too. So I think that will still be there in order to do that. Maybe it's tweaked a little bit more where they disguise a little more, so it won't see like, oh, we know this formation's coming, where we saw the second half of the season. Oh, we see this formation. Everybody fly the ball this way because we know it's going to come this way. I think we disguise a little bit more. But there's a part of that to it. I mean, over time, he's taking a lot of hits, and it wears on you. You start to get up. It starts to get every morning. Gets up. It gets a little tough to get out of bed and everything. And it's being that you paid so much for him. You don't want to be in the quarterback hunt every year trying to find your franchise guy. You have it already, so you want to do everything you can to maximize that and protect him as you can. But I don't. It's like over time we'll see the design runs go to the thing, and I think the closest thing you can do to that is the RPOs, and I think that's what Moore is going to do. Is try to use it more disguised, different formations, and try to maximize that in that aspect and still use it.
Another thing that stands out about Kellen Moore, Chris, is, typically his offenses have always fared well against the blitz. And I think that's one of the reasons they brought him in, right? This coaching staff, Jalen Hurts in particular, struggled against the blitz. But Kellen Moore coming in, now I believe, by my estimation, there's no excuse anymore for Jalen Hurts to not be able to respond to the blitz. And I think with Kellen Moore being here, because he has such a proven track record with having top offenses to respond to the blitz, now I believe the onus is on Jalen Hurts to take his game to the next level. We're going to really see who the real problem was. What do you say to that?
I think he puts him in a good position to do that. And I will give more of that credit too, because when he was with the Cowboys, they were always really good in red zone efficiency. They were really good in that. And the way that Moore does it, especially the one thing I like is just looking back at tape more and more, they use that bunch formation. They still use the 3 wide receivers, which fits perfectly for what the Eagles want to do. But they use it in the fact they bunch them up and they motion them out to make sure they get a free release so that if you see the blitz coming, it's out and quick. And that's going to be on Hurts to get the ball out quick, not hesitate. Because sometimes you see it, he'll hold the ball a little bit, he'll hesitate a little bit more, and then he'll see the read and gets it out. And then by then, footwork, pressure outs, what have you, is just everything's off kill. So it's one of those things where I think you'll have answers this year to that. And one thing I really want to see is I think one thing that can help and enforce it and help with that blitz, use Devontae Smith in the slot a little bit more because it helped him out. Because the one thing that I was looking at the numbers last night when I was writing for a story for today, he's actually pretty effective in there. I want to say he's like near 70% catch rate in that slot. And we all know the route technician he does. He can recognize when a blitz is coming. He peel off. He'll get himself in the right position. And he's going to catch it. So when you have all that stuff, that adds to that thing. I think that the blitz, there'll be answers there to be able to do that. So I won't be surprised if you see a bunch formation. Maybe see Smith go in motion out late, go hook up in the middle, and just present himself a target, and that'll back the defense off a couple of times too.
Chris, let's go to the defensive backfield. You mentioned Slay. I'm with you. I'm fine with that part of it. Let's hit a couple of these. Bradbury, do you think he's gone despite the cap hit? Will Avonte Maddox be given the job? He can't seem to stay healthy. What do you do with the other safety spot with Blankenship? How would you go about sort of reconstructing the defensive backfield?
I'd probably look one thing. We know Rodgers is going to play a role next year.
Isaiah Rodgers, who was suspended this year for gambling. Okay.
Yep. So I think he's going to play a role, and he can be a decent fit. I think. And I think that also plays a role with some other roster spots, kick return wise, but that's a whole other thing. I look at the way when you do that. I think they asked, and this is speculation. I don't have any inside information on this. I wonder if they asked Bradbury to take a cut. I wonder, or say maybe try a little bit more safety. We just seen him play inside. Maybe they ask him to play a little bit more safety. Maybe they still go out and say, you know what? Maybe it was just a different thing and teach him up and go out next year. I still think both he and Maddox are back next year. I really do. I think both of them are there. Whoa. But I also think they draft a cornerback in the first round too. So it'll be a log jam. Still have Keely and everything. I think it'll be a log jam and some of the other moves, but it will be one of those things where you try him out at safety. He's still got Sidney Brown. He won't that ACL. It's going to take a while. So
it happened so late too.
Yeah. That was the roughest, because you feel bad because you see things were really starting to click, and he was. Imagine him in the Fangio scheme, like, okay, if you want somebody, that's what and I think so. You have a backup, so that's another reason why I think Bradbury's back. But I try him a little bit of safety. I try him a little bit more nickel on the inside, and you do that. I still think both he and Maddox are going to be back. I really do think that. And worst case scenario, you can use Maddox as safety too, because he's has experience with that. So there's options there. They can get creative in some ways to try to disguise that, and so you're not putting them out so much on speed. There's ways you can move around that, because Bradbury, it was rough. He's still a very smart guy when it comes to anticipating the zone and everything. But Vic wants to play more man, which is shown past. Yeah. So I still think they're going to be back though. But
wow, that's man, that's a tough. I know you're not doing it for the fans, but that is a tough sell, man.
A very tough sell.
Run it back in that defensive backfield. Jeez,
absolutely, that's a huge tough sell. Chris,
and that's why I think that first round pick is going to come back. Whoever Kool-Aid McHenry. I mean, I'm not thinking another Alabama guy. Yeah, well,
the greatest name ever too. But
exactly. the only way they could sell Bradbury coming back is if they draft the corner in the first round. That's the only way they can really sell that.
Even then,
Chris,
real quick. I wanted to talk to you about just the overall roster, because I know we talk about the defense a lot, but the Philadelphia Eagles, I think even fans really are underestimating how much work they really have to do to not only restore the defense, but to restore depth just throughout the roster. I'm looking at the wide receiver room, and I see AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and then I see a bunch of cardboard cutouts. You know what I'm saying? I just see, Brenton Covey is probably going to be on the roster because of the return factor. But other than that, when it comes to legitimate wide receivers, the Eagles only have two: AJ Brown and Devontae. Everybody else is probably practice squad guys that just jumped onto the roster by the end of the season. And then the tight end room, Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra, can he stay healthy? But other than that, no real tight ends. And then the running back position, Kenny Gainwell, and there's some guy named Lou Nichols III. So I'm trying to understand, what's your perspective on just the overall work they have to do to restore the depth on this team, and how do you think they go about that? Again, they have so much work to do this offseason, and I think this offseason is going to be one of the most pivotal that we've seen in the Howie Roseman era.
I think a lot of that's going to be through the draft. I mean, I wouldn't mind signing Brandon Moore out from the Vikings. That's a guy I would love to see in this offense. But you put him in the slot, he could be a slot guy, because right now Quez is a free agent, Julio's a free agent, Olamide's a free agent. You don't know they're coming back. And I look at Moore. He's a guy who would go in as a veteran in a way that you can use him. He's really fast in the middle, because we always know how this offense works a lot better. He can be the guy that you want Quez to be. Stretch the field, and then you let everybody work underneath, and he goes with the deep shot. He had good numbers. He had a good reception percentage when it came to that. And then also, I think when you look at the running backs, you have to bring Swift back. You have to. I'm sorry. I think he could do extremely well in this Kellen Moore scheme. I think he showed effectively he can run the ball. He could catch the ball. He would be used more as a target out the backfield. And he'll be effective because Moore likes to use two back sets a lot. He used to when he was the Cowboys. So that's the way. But a lot of these other ones, when you look at other depth spots, I think you can get it. Day 3 for a running back. I think you got a good class to be able to use that. I wouldn't be surprised they draft a wide receiver as well too, a day 3 too, to develop. And so you wanted to go year by year, continuing trying to find, okay, how are we going to piece this together? But they do have a lot of depth issues. And one thing you got to look at as well too, offensive line wise, you got to look at the depth there. Jack Driscoll, he's a free agent.
Oh,
you don't know what's going to happen too. So you don't know. And you got this line getting older and older. You need some back. You back there. So I think we'll see a youth movement in a way, because we all know that the Jalen contract as it continues to go. They need more cost-effective guys, and with all those comp picks that they have, combined with the ones they own, I think you'll see.
If I can quickly follow up, Chris. You mentioned DeAndre Swift, and they need to bring him back. I would love to have D Swift back. Let me make that clear. But we all know their history with the running back position, and just to put it in perspective, Miles Sanders, they drafted him, and the Eagles love their draft picks. They drafted him, developed him, and he had a career year last year. And you know what they did? They let him walk. He ended up signing a 4-year contract in Carolina with an average salary of $6.35 million. I'm looking at DeAndre Swift's estimated market value. It's at $6.7 million per year. I just have a hard time buying into the fact that they're going to invest that money into one guy at the position. Again, help me work through how they make this happen, because again, I have a hard time.
That's why you're here, Chris. Help us.
Help me. Help us.
You. Help me.
Help the offense. So that one. One thing I probably think it's one of those things where you can do a 2-year deal. You lessen that effect over there. I wouldn't mind seeing doing that. I look at the fact where also you can play the waiting game, because the running is as sad as it seems. You remember 10 years ago, you say running back, you need to pay a lot. I think you can play the waiting game a little bit, because you have all these big name guys on there. Saquon's out there, Derrick Henry's out there.
The market is huge for running backs right now. There are a lot.
It's bad, especially if you're a guy who's like 3, 4, 5 years. It's bad because you got these big name veterans who've been around, who've done it, and proven it. Got that way too, and then you got all the young guys coming in from college. So you're like, what's going on that one too? So I think you can play the waiting game a little bit and then say, you know what, we'll give you the extra year, but you're going to have to help us out and alleviate the cap on this part. The first year and the second year, you go from that too, or something like that, vice versa. But
just to add some perspective, it's Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler, Cordell Patterson, Gus Edwards, Ezekiel Elliott, Devin Singletary, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Swift, Deontay Foreman, Damian Harris. It's J.K. Dobbins. There's some names out there that the Eagles don't have to feel beholden to paying D Swift that number. So maybe because of the oversaturated market, maybe it could work in their favor to bring.
I think he plays the field, and then they come back and they probably get him at a lower number, because maybe some of these heavy hitters get, not that anybody's paying a ton to running backs, but they're going to get better money probably than he does.
And then when you look at the fact, like if he walks, I look at Devin Singletary as a guy who I'd be intrigued by. And then also, if you want to play your Rashad Penny role to see where he's at, maybe J.K. Dobbins, but coming off that injury as well too. Because problem is he's suffered injury bug a lot. So you're like, maybe they piecemeal it that way as well too, and say, okay, guys, here's our offense. And you're like, all right, get us ready to do it again in 2025. All right, just give me fun.
All right, let me ask you. I want to go back to the edges. I agree with you that they're going to have to replenish that, but you have Reddick going in the last year of his deal, and I'm sure he wants to get a bump, right? Even though he didn't have quite the year he had the previous season. What happens there, do you think? Are they going to come to an agreement with him, or does he ride it out in the last year of his deal? And if that's the case, would he potentially want out if they don't extend him?
Hey, Rob, throw Sweat in there as well. Sweat contract, their contract.
Yeah, let's go both. Yeah, let's go both, Chris.
It's rough, and I don't have any inside info on this, but one thing I think you do is I think they want to wrap him up quick, but I don't know if his number's going to be back. Because I think they want to wrap him up now, because I really think in this Fangio defense now, as you got him running it, this sack total is going to go up. We know what's going to happen.
43 last year from 70 the year before.
Yeah. There's no way to go but up, but also Fangio too. I think they finished third last year in sacks. Miami did. So you got that. You got some more pressure coming that way too. So they're going to try to go on it cheap. I don't know when it comes to Sweat in that one too. I think they would love him back, but I don't know if they're going to get priced out. Sweat to me, I think he's going to get some big money too. So I would be surprised if Hassan, at least, you got a proven guy he's thrown over years and do that. Sweat, gets streaky at times. So he's still good. He's good still defensively, but he gets streaky. So I think overall, they try to get something done with Reddick now and all, because the last thing you want to do is have that distraction going into OTAs and training camp, especially going like, hey, you see this? Because we asked him last year, and we know you see like he's that's one thing I love about Reddick. He's honest, and he knows he doesn't want to talk. Okay, he knows like he doesn't want to create action, but he saw what Bosa was getting. He sees what all these guys are getting. And the last thing was like, all right, cool. You want to do this? just gonna ball out and see you later. He's proven he's done it before in the past. So
right, yeah, he rolled from Carolina that way.
Yeah,
Yep.
and also just to add context to this conversation about those two guys, the market value right now of Hassan Reddick is about the estimated annual salary is about 15.8 million. He's making an average of right now of 15 with Philadelphia already. So the market right now, based on Spot Track, they believe that he's right on par with what he's already making. And then Josh Sweat, his estimated market value is at 21.5 million.
Yeah, here's the thing as well too. There's always going to be that team, and then throw out the phrase that we've heard from another sport. There's always been a team that's always without stupid money because they get desperate at free agency. That first, second day, they want to make a splash. So those numbers, I wouldn't be surprised if both of them. They both hit the market. Those numbers are going to be a lot higher. Like I think Reddick, I wouldn't be surprised if Reddick is somewhere in like the 17, 18, maybe 19 range. I mean, because I think when you look at that and Sweat, a little younger, I think he can get something decent too.
He's only 26. That's the crazy thing about it.
That's the big thing, especially with trying to project them over time, and that was so. I mean, we haven't really seen this team use the franchise tag a lot. Or why doesn't nobody use the transition tag? I mean, it's out there still. I don't
even know why that's still a thing. It feels like it doesn't even. You know what I mean?
This is anger a little more and more. Like anger, like why are you even putting this on me? Like what's going on like that? But
who do you think the Eagles prioritize though? Do you think if they had to choose, if they couldn't sign both, who do you think they prioritize?
Oh, you're killing me with that one. I don't know. It's tough. I think you go knowing their past. If you go by off what they've done past, I think Sweat would be the guy. Just because
I agree. I think it's the age.
That's all.
Yeah, I think it's the age. The fact he has that prototypical edge rusher build. He's more versatile, I think, than Hassan. He can play the run better. Obviously, Hassan is just a pure pass rusher. He's dangerous out there. He's a missile, but
I will say this: Hassan's really good on stretching out those runs as well too. He doesn't like the one thing that I've seen of anything is I see when I look at Smith, when I look at the Sweat sometimes too. Sometimes they lose the edge. They get like the edge. You know, they're outside free. Next thing you know, they're running, especially with these McVay type schemes, the Shanahan schemes with that end around with the wide receiver, and then goes on the outside. Hassan, he does a decent job. The one thing I wish sometimes like he throttled down a little bit more, but it's almost like taking like you want your attack guys to just go straight quarterback. I understand that when it comes to their switch to the edge, but they're both on par when it comes to running. They're both it's just tough. I think the reason why we get Sweat is I think just because of the age factor itself, but it's less production.
Last one for me, Chris, and thanks for the time, man. As always,
yeah, for sure. We appreciate you, Chris.
Didn't really get in too much into Nick Sirianni and your estimation. I know he was somewhat of a CEO because he wasn't calling the plays necessarily, certainly on game day, but the role's a little bit different for him now that he's out of the scheming it up as much during the week, which will be Kellen Moore's job. How do you think he'll transition? How do you think he'll handle that role? That's a big question mark for a lot of people. I'm not going to disrespect him and do what do you do think, because I think there's a lot that goes on, but how do you think he'll handle that role?
I think it'll be adjustment, especially if Moore has the whole entire say on that offense, because he'll still throw what he sees in there. It's like, hey, I see this team does this, this, and this. All right, I'd recommend that, but I don't think it'll be one of those things where no, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. I think it'll be adjustment for him, and for a guy who went from play calling to still having some say to it to now just basically being the overhead, it's rough. It's a little thing, but it's one of those things. It's what happens when you lose 6 or 7. That's what happens when you get bounced down the wild card round and fighting to proving that, hey, I'm coming back. So it'll be an adjustment, but I think overall, seeing what I've seen from Nick beforehand, especially from that first season to where he is now, I think he can be able to handle it. He's going with whatever is going so far, and then I think he'll still do a decent job in terms of that.
Definitely.
Tony, did you have one last one?
Yeah, final one for me when it comes to Nick Sirianni. They bring in Kellen Moore to run the offense. You guys said it. He went from calling the play. Nick Sirianni went from calling the plays to not calling the plays, and then he was just creating the game plan. Now he has no say over his offense. It just seems to be a trickle down effect, and he's losing power by the season. The next step clearly is losing the job. But again, I'm curious to know, can you speak on the dynamic between Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore, knowing Nick Sirianni's situation? And do you think he's essentially a lame duck head coach at this point?
I wouldn't say he's a lame duck. I always say he's a lame duck because it's one of those things where if they go, say 10, 11-5 and win the division, get to the second round, it's like I don't foresee him as a lame duck coach yet. I'll put it that way. Yet, I think it's one of those ways he still has influence where the players still respect him in that aspect. And I think the main thing, the way that's the key to tell. If players just come out flat and just like, yeah, okay, or that's how you can tell you have a lame duck coach or not. They'll still fight for you, whatever you're not. Like I look at Mike McCarthy, that's a guy I see as a lame duck. And say like, oh, you see, there's similar situations now because Jerry had direct influence. At least with Lurie, you may say like, okay, well, I want this change to that, but then he'll back off, let his guys do his things, and then if he sees it's going south, he'll jump in that way too. But I don't think he's a lame duck. I think he still has a lot to say, so he has a lot of respect to the players as well too. And then from there, just let the chips roll with him, and you hope to see him back in the at least a championship game next year with that roster.
Interestingly, too, Chris, just to throw this out there, it was speculated that Carl Scott was going to come here to be one of the defensive assistants. Looks like he's staying in Seattle for what it's worth with Mike McDonald.
Wow.
Clint Hurt, I think it seems like he's coming here, but Carl Scott not coming here. He looks like he's going to stay there as a special defensive assistant, whatever the title is in Seattle.
Yeah. And why am I blanking right now? It was Fangio. He's with his staff. That's a guy I can see still on the list to come that way. I'm blanking. I apologize.
Guys he was with in Miami, you're saying?
I am, yeah. He's I'm not blanking it up. I'm blanking, but I think that's one guy I still keep the name on.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to hear a bunch of names. Like, I think this is a house sweeping, don't you? On that side, in terms of the coaching staff, for the most part.
Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a guy. The only guy I can foresee.
Is it Kenny Baker, Steve Donatel, Wade Herman?
One of the assistant passing game coordinator.
Ronaldo Hill.
Ronaldo Hill, that's right. Thank you.
Okay.
Ronaldo Hill, that's a guy I still think is still a guy that's on the list right now and to do that. But yeah, the only guy I can see maybe staying is Jeremiah Washburn.
Okay.
But looking at that, I mean, you can't. Secondary is tough to keep that and DK, and I think Hill would take that spot.
Yeah,
and some of that stuff. But yeah, it's get the brooms ready. I think when that list comes out,
yeah, it's gonna be long. Oh, yeah, for sure. All right, Chris, keep up the good work, man. Check it out.
Chris. Appreciate it.
NJ.com and C Franklin News on Twitter. It's got links to all of his stories. Let everybody know what your latest is right now, Chris, that they can check out.
Yeah, coming from that time talking from Devontae and AJ yesterday, talk about fatherhood and how it's impacted their games on and off the field, and also got into a little bit of the in the story, got into a little bit of the slot stuff with Kellen Moore we can see as well too. But I thought it was really interesting how much when we talk about fathers and everything else, and you see the way it's changing because these guys are still young. All the stuff they do, they go home, somebody still looks to them and stuff like that, and it's impacting how they see their view of the game and in life in general.
Gotcha. All right, Chris, thanks, man. Always great insights.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Chris.
Thank you guys very much. Y'all have a good one now.
All right, Chris. Likewise. Take care, man. All right, let's get a timeout here, Tone, and let's come back and we're going to look at the job that Howie Roseman has in front of him. Now, we touched on some of this stuff, but we're going to really get into detail here. He's got 2 new coordinators. He's got to figure out, if Sirianni is that guy, how they get Hurts back to being elite, making over this roster, defensive changes. Just generally, he has bounce back seasons, but you can't just assume that. So let's get into all those kind of things when we come back. Don't go anywhere. Tone DeShields, Rob Ellis with you on this Thursday. All right, let's talk about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group because knowing who to trust with your finances is critical. I'm right there in the front of the line. But I can tell you from personal experience that someone I trust is Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review. You might have a small business. You're trying to get your employee benefits off the ground. That's another resource that Jim can help you with. I have entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be too. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You can also email him, Murray, MURRAY.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim@principal.com.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
We are back. Yes, we are. That's Tone to Shields. I am Rob Ellis. We'll just wrap things up with Chris Franklin. All right, so let's talk about Howie Roseman, Tone, and the faith level that you have. Here's what we already know, and there is such a long way to go. We haven't even gotten to the draft. We haven't gotten to free agency. We don't even know the entirety of the coaching staff, okay? But what we do know right now is they kept Nick Sirianni. That's the biggest move thus far. They brought in 2 new coordinators, Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore. Let's just start there with your core 3 of your coaching staff. And let's begin with the choice to keep Sirianni. It's a little unconventional in the sense that, when you're bouncing both coordinators, it's a statement, but it's also, it's a statement that you didn't believe in the people that were here, but it's also a statement and a reflection of the head coach that he's really on the clock. In a lot of ways. And I know Chris wouldn't use the word lame duck, and I'm not using the word lame duck, but I'm telling you, if this isn't a deep playoff run, I'm not sure he's back. There's a whole different kind of heat on Nick Sirianni. He went from unknown coach that they brought in, slow start, then got hot, incredible year last year. The expectation was to get back to the Super Bowl. Now it's, what is this guy?
Right. That's why, I brought it up the way I did, in terms of, you guys said it, right? You lose play call, you give up play calling, and then you lose control of your entire offense. What's the next step after that? You feel me? So it's like, I'm a bottom line guy. I try not to be all the time because life has nuance, but I'm usually a bottom line guy. I'm usually a matter of fact guy, and I'm usually an all or nothing kind of guy. This seems them keeping Nick Sirianni on this roster, on this team, knowing all the changes they made with the staff. It kind of it smells like the Sean Desai move, right? You demoted him, but you still kept him in the building. You took away all his power, but he's still in the building doing something. What, sharpening pencils? What is he doing? So I'm not a fan of the dynamic, I guess, but it all remains to be seen. I just don't know how Nick Sirianni. I don't see how this formula can last and end on a high note. You asked about my trust level right now, just Howie Roseman, just the whole situation. Right now, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I trust the Eagles unequivocally, 1 being I don't trust them at all. I think right now I'm at a 5 with the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm at a 5 or 6 when it comes to trust. So many things went wrong this past season. So many miscues, miscalculations. The way, and on top of that, you factor in their philosophy and their process when it comes to certain things. I'm just struggling. I'm struggling to really have undying faith, in this organization because of the way they've made certain moves. Now, look, I am optimistic about the quarterback. I'm going to remain optimistic about the OC because I'm excited to see what wrinkles he can add to this offense. I'm curious to see how much different Vic Fangio's defense is with him calling it rather than someone else. I'm really curious to see that as well. It's just I'm not on stable ground right now with the Philadelphia Eagles.
I'm really curious to see if this team was so horrendously coached on both sides of the ball. Now I can divorce Nick from the defensive side of the ball. That part's easy. They were just horrendously coached. Every core fundamental. They didn't take the ball away. They didn't sack the quarterback. They couldn't get off the field on third down. You name it across the board. They were terrible.
And also the players just weren't good.
They weren't good, right? So put that aside. I'll be very curious what Fangio does. And Fangio's got a long track record. The other side of the ball was equally horrendous, if not worse. And I'm even though the numbers were still okay. So what I'm saying to myself, I'm trying to delineate if that was Nick or Brian Johnson was just so far over his head at this point. I don't know which. And we're going to know pretty quickly how much of it was who and what and whatever.
Well, based off them firing Brian Johnson, that infers that they felt like he was the issue. But I think it was one of those situations where he bit the bullet for Nick Sirianni's deficiencies, in my opinion.
Could be, right? Could be. Very, very well could be the case. That's what I'm curious about. I do think that Nick can be the CEO guy. I do. I think you can be someone who is invested and involved in a lot of different things without doing the day-to-day as far as the offensive game planning. I think he can do that.
I think so too, but I guess I look at it as, right, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, those guys are CEO coaches, but I feel like he's closer to the Jason Garrett side of things than he is those guys. You know what I mean? Jason Garrett was a CEO coach, but Jason Garrett kind of just seemed like a face. You know what I mean? Nick Sirianni, he has to earn he still has to earn a lot of equity, not just with me, but in the NFL to even be considered, one of the top CEO coaches in this league, like a Harbaugh and a Mike Tomlin. He's nowhere near in that room. Like I said, I think he's more closer to the Jason Garrett side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's ultimately we're going to find out. We know. Here's what we know. It'll be his last year if that's the case. If he is a Mike or a
Jason Garrett type,
he'll be gone, or even Mike McCarthy for that matter. But he'll be out of here. I don't think that ultimately that's going to be the case. I think the biggest thing. I think there's two very different jobs on both sides of the ball. Kellen Moore's job is to get Jalen back to being his best. And if he can't do that, all of it crumbles into the ground, into the abyss. It's over. Like Nick's gone. Everything's going to be cleaned out. Everything. I'm talking both sides of the ball. This thing, you go into almost a bad place. So you got to fix first and foremost. That is the biggest thing. I feel like Fangio is more at the mercy of not having talent, but he'll coach him up better than the guys did last year. I believe that. But it's a matter of getting him
he needs players.
Some players. Yeah, that's where, again, this is where it's Howie, right? So you made these moves. You decided with these guys. They both have had experience, obviously Fangio a lot more, but Moore has called plays for 6 years. So you look at these guys and how do you get Jalen back to being elite? Is it as simple as play calling? Is it as simple as, fundamental stuff? Even though these guys are pros, sometimes they fall into bad habits. You better unlock that. And if you can't unlock that, then I don't, again, you're It's going to be the whole. Here we go again with it's Carson Wentz over again. If you don't,
that's why I think that I honestly think that's why the Philadelphia Eagles are looking at it as this. They're looking at it like this. They're putting what Jalen Hurts needs at the forefront than making Jalen Hurts' comfortability is more important than Nick Sirianni's comfortability. So they're going to do whatever they feel like they need to do to make sure they get the most out of that quarterback, because in their mind, they've already thought about what you just said.
Yeah.
We can't let this be another Carson Wentz situation. That's sitting in the back of their minds. That's Jalen Hurts, the second quarterback they've given this kind of money to over the past 7 years, or over the past 10 years. Within a 10-year span, he's the second guy they've given this kind of money to. So they know damn well they can't afford to blow this. They know that. They know above all else, they cannot blow the quarterback position. That's why I think Kellen Moore was brought in. Not even just Kellen Moore. That's why I think they hit Sirianni's entire staff, and they brought in somebody with legit experience. And it begs the question, why not do that in the first place? Why not? When Shane Steichen left, why didn't you seek someone who had legit play calling experience on the NFL level?
That worries me because
it was contradictory. It's weird to me. Like, what you had to go through this to know that, okay, maybe you should put some experience, with your $255 million investment.
Yeah,
it's common sense.
It worries me that was your judgment. Like you blew it on both coordinators, and I'm sure Nick was all in. I'm sure on those guys, and that's fine. But ultimately, it's your call. It's your call, Howie, and you couldn't recognize that. Either Brian Johnson wasn't ready yet, Sean Desai just wasn't the guy, Matt Patricia wasn't the guy when you pulled that desperate move. That should have Eagles fans skeptical. All of that whole thing that we had to go through that last year.
And then that begs the question, right? Did Nick Sirianni have more influence over his coaching staff last season, hence why they felt the need to strip him of those duties this upcoming season? Is that I think that's something we have to consider, right? I'm not saying Howie and Jeffrey Lurie had no hand in, the staff going into, Brian Johnson, Sean Desai, but what if they said, "Hey, Nick, we're kind of behind the 8 ball here. We were in the Super Bowl. We're going to let you pick your staff, and then we'll sign off on it." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What if that was the case? And then they looked at it as, Nick, you dropped the ball completely with this. We're taking over when we're completely overhauling that coaching staff.
I
don't know. It's something to think about. Where do you fall on that?
Here's where I fall on it. I think they didn't give Doug any say on anything really, and I think they felt like with Nick when he wanted Gannon, he wanted Steichen, and I think they gave him.
Well, Gannon was hired before Nick. Believe it or not, Gannon was hired before Nick.
Was he?
Yeah, yep. I confirmed that. I was talking to John McMullen about that recently.
Fair enough.
And,
fair enough.
Yeah. But he did want Steichen though. That's a fact. He did want Steichen.
But I think they gave him more say on his staff, I guess, than Doug. So I think that they wanted their coach to have a little bit more autonomy. I think maybe they felt like they sort of smothered Doug a little bit, and it worked the first time around. Okay, because they were both very good coordinators. I know everybody hates Gannon, whatever. He was better than these guys.
Yeah, he's better than these guys.
But I think maybe they gave him say this last round, and then that blew up, and they were like, "Not anymore, man. Not only are we making the call here, you're out of scheming this up as well. Whoever we bring in for offense is going to make those decisions." So I think Nick is almost back in Dougville, if you will, with that kind of stuff. If you want to stay, he wanted to stay there. He wanted to stay with the team. I think that was part of the conditions. That's just me. Again, I don't know that.
No, I hear you. Don't you think it's strange? Let me ask you this, right? If you invested in a $255 million project, and the success of this project, the success of your company hinges on the success of this project, aren't you likely, or let me just make it simple. Are you going to hire someone with experience running a project of this magnitude, or are you going to bring in someone and bet on someone that, doesn't really have that experience, but you trust their instincts and you think they can do the job? How do you approach that?
Some of it's gut, but you ultimately, I would err on the side of experience. I think, I think played into it, Tone. I think a little bit was the Jalen relationship, and you thought it would just be perfect, and it wasn't. And that's why sometimes they say don't ever do business with friends or family because it can get very sort of murky sometimes.
Exactly. You wouldn't hire your cousin to run that $250 million
No, I don't
project.
want my cousin anywhere near $250 million.
You wouldn't hire Cliff, would you?
No, Cliff's not getting near that. I want Cliff. I want Cliff sitting next to me at the bar or in a foxhole if stuff goes sideways. But he's not getting. Shout out to Cliff. Cliff's not getting near my bread. He's not getting near my bread, man. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to Cliff, man.
Yeah, we love Cliff. We're all for Cliff, Team Cliff, but not when it comes to my paper. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. So that's why it's when they did what they did. Don't get me wrong. I was on the side of okay, Brian Johnson. I'll roll with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But then as the season progressed, I began to think to myself, if you want to get the most out of your guy, don't you want to put experienced people around him?
Yeah.
And then it snowballed, and it just got to a point where I'm like, they dropped the ball with those hires.
Massive
they completely dropped the ball.
Yeah.
And again, I think Brian Johnson, I'm not saying he did a great job, but I also believe he bit the bullet for Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni went into those meetings, and Nick Sirianni knew damn well he was not going to push back on anything. And I think they knew that Nick wasn't going to push back on anything. Mm-hmm. So, they pulled his card and they pulled right, and they forced him to move on. They forced him to fire Brian Johnson. I'm pretty sure they forced him to demote Sean Desai. They can tell us all they want that it was Nick's decision. They're trying too hard to make us believe that. Yeah. So therefore, I don't believe it.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. All right. So then there's the gigantic coaching peak component to this thing. Then there's the roster makeover. I look on the offensive side. There's a lot of talent there. This should be a good offense. It just should. I mean, there's too many reasons for it not to, and obviously a lot of it hinges on Jalen. But there's too much talent there. In fairness, on the other side of the ball, here's the question marks that you have even on the defensive line. What's the contract status of Reddick, and is he going to be unhappy playing out the last year of his deal? Is Sweat going to be unhappy playing out the last year of his deal? Then you work your way off the edges and into the trenches. And, again, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Is Jordan Davis going to grow up, frankly, and understand that he's got to be in shape? This is not – you're not playing Mississippi, man. You're playing 17 games against the best in the universe. And you got to be ready physically. Is Milton Williams ready to take a step up if Fletcher Cox walks? And then is Tui Polotu that fourth guy, or do you need somebody else in there? All those things along the defensive line, and that's your strength. Mm-hmm. Then you go to the other side, and we just had Chris Franklin on, and Chris Franklin believes that Nakobe Dean's going to be penciled in as a starter. I don't like that personally. Right. Then he seems to think Zach Cunningham's coming back. So, all right, those two are back, but man, you better get at least two guys who are real players, whether you're drafting them or free agency or making a trade, that can play, because you went into last year without any kind of plan B. Then you go to the secondary. He thinks Bradbury's back. I mean, there was a lot there with Chris. Like
and also I want to make it clear too, right? This is Chris, trying to think what they're going to do.
They're going to do.
What they're going to do. Right.
Big
right. Not what he would do, and that's a big difference. Because I'm pretty sure if you ask Chris, what would you do in that situation? He's like, yeah, I'm eating that money on Bradbury.
Totally. Now, maybe Bradbury understands I'm not getting anywhere near this anywhere else. I'll take a cut. I don't know. I don't know.
Or I'll take a restructure and kick and defer it
down the curb. Yeah.
That's the best course of action.
Anyway,
Bradbury has to. Who's his agent? Let's find out.
I don't know. But anyway you slice it, man, that is going to be a hard sell to the fans. If you're running back this secondary with Maddox, Bradbury, and Slay, it's a hard sell.
Chris Coy, Vanguard Sports Group.
I don't know him. But so familiar. And then your safeties, you obviously you have to get one. So now the corners are interesting because Isaiah Rodgers is there. You drafted Ringo, you drafted Ricks. What we don't know is what Rodgers is going to look like after sitting a year. What the young guys, that second year sometimes is a big leap for them in a positive way. So are they ready to take the big leap? Safety. I don't really see an answer right now, especially if Sidney Brown is out half the year. I mean, he got hurt in December.
Yep. He got hurt towards the end of December. I think it was December 31st.
Maybe he's back to start the year
30th.
with the way ACLs are now. I don't know, but can I
Yep,
really
it was
count
31st. Is my birthday. He got hurt on my birthday. Yep, 31st. Yeah.
Okay, so almost January. Maybe he gets back. I don't know, but nonetheless, you can't tell me that there aren't littered with question marks on that back seven.
Oh, absolutely. It's a dog pile of just question marks and unknowns. That's why when they went into that press conference and spoke the way they spoke about that defense and the linebackers, and I'm like, wake the hell up. You guys have real issues on that side of the ball. I don't want to hear about Zach Cunningham having a good year or Nicole, you still have faith in Nicole. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear you speak in such a way that everybody on that side of the ball has to earn it. You know what I mean? Like he's like, it's just it's delusion to an extent. Look, I have no idea when the Kobe Dean is or isn't. That's how annoying this situation is. He's got hurt on
we
two separate
learned nothing
occasions.
from last year.
I
If
learned
anything,
nothing.
there's more doubt than belief because we were worried he was going to get hurt, and he got hurt.
Right, and to make it even worse, that was the reason he dropped in the draft. And lo and behold, it played out exactly as such. The moment he got on the field for an extended period of time, he got hurt. It's ridiculous.
And
then when
even
he
when
comes
he was on the field, he didn't impress. He couldn't cover anybody.
Right, he didn't stand out. You know what I mean? Didn't really make too many plays. So it's just when you think about it from that perspective, the Kobe Dean should have to earn every snap because he has to stay healthy first and foremost before I can even have an opinion about his game. And then it's going to get to a point where the health is going to overshadow the game. Even it's going to be a point where there's nothing he can do. So I think they really need to, and I'm with Chris. They need in the first 3 picks of that draft, they got to draft the linebacker. I think the first 2 picks in the draft should likely be corner, linebacker, or best available. Like they need talent on defense. So I'm willing to go best available on defense in that first round.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah, that could be anything from corner to edge.
Linebacker.
I'm not going deep tackle again. I'm not.
No, not that. Not doing that at all.
Yeah, at certain positions, I'm with you. And traditionally, I don't care what the precedent has been. You need these positions now.
This is the kind of off season where you got to buck your precedent.
You got to get out of it. Yeah, you can't just chalk it up to a bad year. You have been getting away with missing on some positions over the years, and now it got you.
Because this is what they've done. They've missed, and they try to supplement it with the free agent hire. And then we bite that and say, oh, we're excited about this new guy. But obviously, we know that guy's not a long-term answer. See, here's the thing. You're going to always find yourself in financial peril when you keep missing on draft picks and you keep having to supplement that with a free agent signing.
Exactly.
That's why they are where they are, because they have not been. If they were able to hit on, let's just go back in memory lane. How much of life would be different if they hit on what's the kid that they drafted out of Russell Douglas? How much
seem to figure it out later.
We seem to figure it out once
they
he
didn't
left.
get the most out of him. I don't know what.
Right. How much different would life be if the kid Sidney, the corner that they drafted out of Washington,
Sidney Jones.
Imagine if he would have hit, because he was a talented dude in the draft. He was supposed to be one of the best
He
corners.
was never the same off of it.
And then he ruptured Achilles. Never the same. How much different would life be if Davion Taylor became a player?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of what ifs.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just they were miss after miss after miss, and they've been chasing this white whale on defense, and they can't figure it out. They can't figure it out. So they cannot continue to put themselves in positions where they're missing on defensive draft picks, and they got to find a free agent. They're burning money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And what happens is when you do that, you end up having to make trades and sign free agents who are costing you either assets that you have to give up or more money than if you just drafted the guy and got it right.
Right. And then your defense is always on borrowed time.
Yeah.
Always. You're never going to have a foundation on defense ever if you're just going to primarily fill it with mercenaries.
Right.
Fill it with free agents. It's not a sustainable formula. I feel like every team on both sides of the ball, you have to have at the very least, maybe 6 guys that you drafted, 6 or 7 guys that you drafted that are players, and then you sprinkle in free agents to supplement what you have.
Yeah.
When you're so one-sided, the offense is mainly drafted guys. There's only 2 guys on that offense, I believe, that were free agents or trades, and I think that's AJ Brown and DeAndre Swift, when he was here. So
Right.
Overall, though, in the Super Bowl year, there was only 1 guy on the roster that was not drafted in offense, and that was AJ Brown. So on defense, how many guys were former free agents or trades? You got Kaiser
Reddick.
White.
All right, let's go. Reddick.
Kaiser White, Hassan Reddick, James Bradbury,
Darius Slay.
CJ Gardner-Johnson, Darius Slay. That's 5 guys right there.
Yeah, your homegrown talent was Fletcher.
Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis was on the team, right?
Oh, I forgot Hargrave. There's 6 guys that was
Hargrave was a free agent from the Steelers.
So your defense was in that Super Bowl team. 6 of your 11 starters were free agents.
TJ Edwards was kind of homegrown. You know what I mean? He didn't.
Right.
Didn't sign, yeah, he was undrafted.
Right. He was undrafted, so I consider that homegrown.
Mhm.
TJ Edwards, Fletcher Cox, Milton Williams.
And he wasn't even really a starter.
Jordan Davis.
But I get, your point is a ton of
more than half of your defense was free agents.
Yeah.
How many of those guys are still here?
But that's the problem too, Tone. Like the good news is Howie usually bounces back after a bad season. But the bad news, the bad news of that is, like, let's take the 2017 championship team.
Mm-hmm.
He went on a heater in the offseason like we've maybe never seen.
That whole team was free agents, if you think about it.
He signs Foles, which turned out to be the most ingenious move ever, as he sits there as Carson's backup. LeGarrette Blount, who absolutely was huge for them. Okay. Chris Long, who was a phenomenal rotational edge that you got. Patrick Robinson, who started off slowly, but then came on and had the huge interception in the NFC Championship game. Torrey Smith, Alshon Jeffrey. I'm just saying, like, these guys were all, like, most of those were moves that he made that offseason, but a lot of these guys were free agents. And I'm missing a bunch of guys who just played great for them that they literally just picked up that year or in season. They went out and got Jay Ajayi.
Mm-hmm.
God, I'm trying to think of who else. But there was a lot, man. But it's hard to get that much right in an offseason. Really is.
Mm-hmm. When you think about that Super Bowl roster in 2017, a lot of those guys were free agents, or guys they traded for. LeGarrette Blount wasn't drafted by the Eagles. Alshon Jeffrey wasn't drafted by the Eagles. Torrey Smith was not drafted by the Eagles. Who else here? Stefan Wisniewski, who was the left guard, was not drafted by the Eagles. Brandon Brooks, not drafted by the Eagles. Timmy Jernigan, not drafted by the Eagles. Nigel Bradham, not drafted by the Eagles. Ronald Darby, Rodney McLeod, Malcolm Jenkins, not drafted by the Eagles. That team, when you really think about it, how could we definitively say that they had a Super Bowl window with that many free agents? Were we kidding ourselves? And I still haven't named all the guys, right? Chris Long, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's so many guys I can probably again call on, but were we kidding ourselves back then that they had a real Super Bowl window with that many free agents comprising your Super Bowl winning roster?
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's impossible to maintain that. I think it's impossible not to. That is the exception. What happened in 17?
That was lightning in a bottle, literally.
Yeah, you have to draft well, or else long term it's going to get you. And it got the Eagles. It got the Eagles this year. They got off to a great start, but it got them eventually. And yeah, there's some things you couldn't account for. Like, I don't blame Jalen turned the ball over a lot. The Eagles couldn't have anticipated that. There's some things that are out of a coach or a front office control. Some of it, like we always talk about, Tone, some of it falls on the players. No doubt. But you can't tell me, if we sat down Howie Roseman and I said to him, did you give whoever you want to call the coordinator last year, did you give them enough talent on that side of the ball? I think the honest answer would be no. We need to do a better job. We need to upgrade. So you have a good amount of picks this year. You're set up kind of nicely as far as that goes. You're in okay cap shape. you need to upgrade this thing in a big way, big time.
Absolutely. And, to your scenario about sitting down with Hurt Roseman, he's a lawyer, so he'll find a way to spin it. He'll say something like, talent. What does talent mean in the context of this conversation? He'll say, well, we have a Pro Bowler here, a Pro Bowler there, former All-Pro there. I mean, sounds like talent to me. It's like, and that's what he did in that press conference.
I know. I understand what you're saying.
But again, when I bring up the roster and the sustainability of it all, right. A lot of things didn't go right this past season, but just independently, just more so dissecting their mindset and their philosophy about team building. I think they need to revisit how they build, in particular, a defense. They drafted that whole offense.
Yeah.
The defense, they need to go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, what are we doing wrong?
This two-tone could be an area where you address this with changes potentially in your front office. Why have we struggled so much identifying defensive talent coming out of college? Maybe the people who are in place need to go, and maybe somebody else needs to, make those decisions. Maybe we need to change the front office. Like we always look at it from a coach's perspective. Maybe from a front office perspective, Howie's got to do some things with the people beneath him and change some things up. Ziggy, thank you. Yeah, we talked about it earlier. He's going to stay in Seattle.
Unfortunately. Thanks, Ziggy. We appreciate it, my friend. So you're absolutely right. That was thrown off a bit. Overall,
in terms of your college scouting, maybe isn't where it needs.
Right, exactly. What if we're in a situation where we have scouts saying, "Hey, Howie, this is the move you should make," and he's saying, "I think I like this guy though," and then he pulls the trigger on the guy he likes.
I know that's the part that ultimately you don't know. I know we've heard the stories before, not just with the Eagles, but where scouts are banging the table for a certain guy saying, this is the guy. And then a GM overrides it and it turns into a disaster. All you can do is make your recommendation. I get it. So I don't know.
Right. But here's the sad part about it. Those scouts are going to get the shit into the stick.
Totally.
Because the GM chose a player that they didn't recommend. But you know what the story is going to be? Wow, this team, they need to fire that whole scouting department. Who's scouting these players that this team has? And if you ask the scouts, it's like, not us. We like these guys. They're choosing these guys. So someone's always going to have to bite the bullet for somebody above them. That's just the way it works. You and I know that all too well. So this thing that the Philadelphia Eagles got going on this offseason, it's going to make or break them.
I agree with you. It's going to be. Here's what it does, Tone. It ensures that the coach is gone if they don't have a successful season. Mm-hmm. I think what it really does is I think Jeffrey Lurie's got to take a step back and really examine things, then with Howie. Should I invest this much trust? What has happened here ultimately? How do I need to look at this thing through a different lens, potentially? So you better hope that Nick is the guy. You better hope that the coordinators you brought in, and again, Howie's got to have Tone at worst like a B+ offseason. I don't see it getting much lower than that, and this team being able to, threaten the 49ers or whatever in the NFC. I really don't.
Right. I think what they need. Okay, so I want to be as realistic as possible. To me, their goal, because they were so awful on defense, their goal should be to go from awful to being respectable.
I agree. Solid's where I'm at. I don't.
That's the goal, in my opinion.
I am not unrealistic enough to think this is going to turn into a top 5 defense. I just need them to be solid and let your offense carry it.
Can you be solid?
Yeah.
Can you go from being one of the worst defenses in the league? Can you at least be top 15?
Yeah, be middling. Create some turnovers, get to the quarterback a little bit better, and
get a few stops.
Yeah, that's all.
Because that's what I called for going into this season, going into the last season. I said, if this Eagles team is going to be successful, yes, the offense is going to have to carry most of the load, but this defense, at bare minimum, just has to be competent. and opportunistic.
Agreed, man.
And they were neither of those things.
No, not even close. Not even close. All right. Let's think. I want to kind of pick up on a couple things off of this when we get back, and then we'll mix in some other stuff that's going on around the world of sports as well. So we'll do all that when we come back. And then at 1 o'clock, our NFL segment. Don't go anywhere. Tone and Rob, let's talk about Pro Action Restoration. Pro Action Restoration is the place that you turn to if you have water, fire, smoke, mold damage, you name it, or something else. You're not really sure if you can handle it. Just reach out. Pro Action Restoration is on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. They are licensed, bonded, fully insured, and they've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action, and I can tell you this from personal experience, Pro Action Restoration will work in conjunction with your insurance company. I know when I had my issue with some flooding from the upstairs into the downstairs, they were great at diagnosing the problem and also going about everything that I needed. I needed new ceiling. I needed a new wall. I needed new carpet, and they handle all of those things for you. So you're not, trying to reach out to 3-4 different types of parties. So again, water, fire, smoke damage, mold remediation, you name it, they can handle it. Give them a call right now. 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their Fantasy Pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
We're back. Tone and Rob hanging out with you on this Thursday. Hope everybody's doing great. All right, let's kind of pick up on that, Tone, where we were with the sort of, in Howie we trust thing and some of the things that are in front of him, because he's got a lot on his table. Okay, you always do when you're
really quickly, man, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Howie Roseman The relationship that Eagles fans have with Harry Roseman is so toxic. Like, what I mean by that is, like, it's so up and down. It's so, I love you, I hate you, I hate you, I love you.
Yeah.
You're welcome over for dinner anytime. I better not see you on my lawn. Otherwise, it's just people like the relationship Harry Roseman has had with this city has been so fascinating to chronicle.
Yeah.
Like, you covered this team for a long time. You tell me, again, how fascinating has it been for you covering this Philadelphia Eagles team as long as Harry Roseman's been in charge of, the decisions? Hasn't it been one of the more fascinating arcs in sports?
It has. I've never seen anything like it, in fact. Honestly, I have never seen anything like it. I've never seen a GM outlast this many coaches. I've never seen a fan base go to the extremes. It's manic. It is love-hate, like you said. It is. Some people will defend him to the hilt. Others think he stinks. When he's hot, he's like Kyle Schwarber, when he's hot. And when he's cold, he's Kyle Schwarber too. He is either jacking
Harry
home runs.
Roseman is the Kyle Schwarber of the NFL.
Yeah, dude. Like, when he's good, like, you watch some of the majestic shots and you're like, oh my God, did he just do that? And then there's other times where he goes 3 weeks without getting a hit and it's, 30 strikeouts. And you're like, ugh. But it is the most unique I've ever seen, because usually when you have some of the ups and downs. Now, I will say this in fairness to him and the organization. If you look at their track record in terms of getting to the playoffs, while he's been the GM, they've been in the playoffs a ton. I'm not saying they're the Patriots, but
Right.
they're maybe second or third in terms of playoff appearances.
Yeah.
Okay?
I think they have the most playoff wins in their division since 2000 or 1999 or something like that.
So they've won a lot.
Yeah, just to keep the baseball references still going, we don't need Harry Roseman to be Kyle Schwarber, right? We need him to be more of a small ball GM.
I agree.
We need him.
Just give me more hits, man.
We need more hits. I don't care if they're singles, doubles, you know what I mean? The occasional triple. Okay, you sprinkle in a home run here and there. I need more singles from Harry Roseman. I need more base hits, bottom line.
Yeah, and like we touched on earlier, when he gets it right, it's 2017, and you can't even believe what you just saw. I mean, think about it, Tone. He came back from being demoted, right, with Chip, to 2 years later, he's the executive of the year.
It was he was positioned. Well, it was known as one of the greatest comebacks we've seen.
Right.
But we thought that was going to be the standard, right? And sure, they made it to a Super Bowl 2 seasons ago, but they haven't been sustainable formulas.
Yeah. So what you're looking for from him is just more consistency. And again, with a down year last year, his track record is usually that he gets it back. But I to answer your question, first of all, I've never seen a GM have this kind of volatility, if you will, with a fan base. But I don't know that he compares to any Philadelphia sports figure I've ever covered. Think about this. Usually when you get demoted, you lose your job. Jeffrey Lurie demoted him, gave him a raise, and kept him around. And then within a year realized he made a mistake and brought him back in. Then he came back roaring. Like, he came back on fire. And he got them back to the Super Bowl. He's gotten to 2 Super Bowls in a 5-year span, which is hard to do too, in fairness. But you look at some of the drafting, which has maybe not been the strength. You look at some of the choices that were made. You've cycled through, too many coordinators now here. Some of it not their fault. Some guys moved on to brighter pastures. And they have philosophies that you hope they're not too stubborn in, that they're not willing to come out of their comfort zone. And I worry about that a little bit. I worry when I heard Howie say, talk about the linebackers. That worried me. So that's the thing. I hope there's that willingness to be vulnerable and to be flexible and learn from some of the things that have gone on. I don't know.
Would you qualify Harry Roseman as being a risk taker?
Yeah, I think he's very aggressive. I think he's great at, I'll say 2 things that I think he's phenomenal at. 1, cap management, but 2, he's very good in a draft night / pre-draft night sensing what's around him. He has a very good feel for other organizations. He has a lot of ties into other organizations, and he knows who's up against the cap wise, what guy's unhappy, and I'll prey on that and I'll get them for cheaper than I should get. Look, the AJ Brown trade is phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Okay, it's a great trade. To get out of Carson Wentz the way that they did. Yeah, they took a cap hit, but they got return on the trade for Carson Wentz, which helped them. So he's pulled off some unbelievable moves. And I would say this, more good than bad, but there needs to be a little bit more consistency as far as I'm concerned with him.
Yeah, I think for me, when it comes to Howie Roseman, as much as I acknowledge, the good he's done, I struggle with the root of some of his decision making. And what I mean by that is, I think Howie Roseman, with all the success he has had, with the experience he had being thrown in the broom closet and all that kind of stuff, he tends to, and again, I don't know him, but this is just me this is just looking at the moves, and this is my opinion of it all.
Yeah.
He seems like a guy that kind of moves out of self-preservation or fear. And what I mean by that is, he probably vowed to himself he will never, ever allow himself to get thrown into a broom closet again.
I'm sure he did.
And I feel like that sits in the back of his mind. And I think that's why things went south with Doug, because he probably felt like, oh no, that's getting too close to the Chip Kelly thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You want more say, you want more power? No, that's a slippery slope for me. And I think ultimately he got into Jeffrey's ear, and they ultimately decided to move on from Doug. I just feel like Howie, I wish he knew his own limitations.
I get that, and I'll play devil's advocate. How many GMs operate out of that same mind frame of self-preservation? Probably a lot of them, right? I mean, there's only so few of those.
I'm willing to argue. That's a good point. I'm willing to argue there are more GMs operate out of self-preservation in a larger sense than him, because he has so much security
with the owner. Good point.
He has so
There's
much
other guys that
with
are
the
on
owner.
much more thin ice than he's on.
Most of these GMs, these teams are giving them 2 or 3 years to make a splash, and it's hard. And a lot of these owners don't have patience, and they fire GMs before things really get going.
Right.
I'm a firm believer that you got to give a GM at least 5 years to show you something. You got to at minimum, because especially if he's taking on a project. So no, you bring up a good point. Maybe not so much self-preservation, but maybe not the same context as far as self-preservation, right? I think those other GMs, they're trying to save their legitimate jobs in the organization. I think for Howie, it's more so about his role,
right?
In the decision making. And
that's
again,
true. Power,
yeah, power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Power. And I think for me, I just feel like he has to get better, and I think he has improved. Don't get me wrong. I feel like he has improved, but I feel like he still has a long way to go with understanding his limitations, especially when it comes to personnel decisions. He's great with pro personnel. He knows how to identify players who are maybe in their final year of their contracts or final year of a rookie deal, trading for them, leveraging their desire to get paid.
He got Swift for nothing, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah. He knows how to find the pro personnel. He's a great deal maker.
Yeah.
He knows how to pick up the phone and get people to succumb to his will. He's very good at those things.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to identifying talent in the draft, he needs to know his limitations.
Yeah, I agree. Look,
especially on the defensive side.
Yeah, and especially in the draft, and that's why you worry a little bit. You do. And they brought in an offensive coordinator who tends to get away from the run. That concerns me a little bit. I like a lot of things about Kellen Moore, but that is one thing I worry a little bit. All right. So look, certainly a lot to dive into here as far as that goes. So let's come back and let's do our NFL segment, Tone, and we'll, kind of circle back to Dan Quinn going to Washington, but some of the other things that are happening around the NFL, which we will dive into as well. Don't go anywhere. Tone DeShields, Rob Ellis. Let's talk about Flynn Tree Services. Yes, Flynn Tree Services is an experienced, licensed, and insured Pennsylvania tree services company that will trim or remove any unwanted trees off of your property. They offer cost-effective solutions to any tree problem that you may face. They are experts trimming all types of trees, and they serve southeastern Pennsylvania, South Jersey, and northern Delaware. You can go to their Facebook or Instagram page for more information or a sampling of their work. Give Flynn Tree Services a call at 610-850-2848, 610-850-2848, or online at flynntreeservices.com. That's flynntreeservices.com.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up, and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Back on this Thursday. Tone, Rob, hanging with you. All right, so big story NFL-wise is Dan Quinn, Commanders head coach. They did go defense. There were more defensive hires than offensive hires this time around.
Interesting.
So, yeah, you know, a little out of the box that they had been trending the other way, very heavily with the offensive guys. But yeah, they go.
You know what it probably is? A lot of these organizations probably are looking at it like this. Look, who cares if we hire a defensive head coach? The OC is going to run the offense anyway. It makes no difference. That's probably how they're looking at it. But it could influence on field, situation football decision making, where whether you're a defensive or offensive guy, you're going to always make decisions based off your experience and your instinct. And when you have a defensive instinct, you're probably going to handle your timeouts a little differently. You're going to handle the clock differently than maybe an offensive guy would. You're going to handle field position or respond to field position differently than maybe an offensive guy would. So maybe those are the differences, and maybe those are the differences in between the offensive head coach versus defensive head coach, is how you handle nuances of the game. But overall, when it comes to just game planning and play calling, your OC is going to be doing it anyway. So hiring a defensive head coach probably isn't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, and look, if I think the way that they thought this was going to happen was, I think they thought they had Ben Johnson in the bag. I think they felt like that was a done deal.
And then Slowick as well.
Yeah, probably. And you know, if what we're hearing is true about Johnson, he maybe just priced himself out. And that's something he's going to have to look long and hard at, because I don't know that he gets 15 or 16 next year either, for that matter. But so then all of a sudden, with all those offensive names off the board, Slowick was out of there, Jared Johnson was out of there, Johnson's out of there. You know, they took a guy who got to a Super Bowl. You know, it's not like Dan Quinn didn't have any kind of success.
Yeah,
so
quite frankly, they should have won it.
Yeah, and has been a very good defensive mind. So if you bring in the right offensive guy and let him do his thing, and Dan Quinn is, you know, they're going to hire a defense coordinator, but Dan Quinn is in charge of running that defense. You know, it's a way to get yourself back to prominence. And
it also helps that he's familiar with the division.
Yeah, I think it's a solid hire. I know it's not sexy necessarily, but I think it's a pretty solid hire for them. I think he'll do fine there.
I think so as well. I think it is a solid hire. Again, he has familiarity with the division, played the Eagles and all the other teams twice, 2 times, and twice a season. So, maybe that was one of the basis behind the hire as well. You know, Josh Harris and those guys said, look, you know, he's familiar with the division. He could probably help us increase our win total just based off of that. You know, let's roll with it. And you're right, it's not a sexy hire, but I don't think it's a terrible hire. It's all going to remain to be seen though. But it's a quality hire for sure.
Agreed. Diana Rossini from The Athletic, who's been just on a tear.
There goes that girl again.
Yeah. So she posted a little bit earlier that what she was hearing during the hiring process in Washington, Bill Belichick was considered for the job per sources. The Commanders spoke with him, and he had support from some decision makers. In the end, though, they chose Dan Quinn. So apparently it wasn't just the Falcons that were at least considering Belichick, but it didn't play out that way. So let's stay on that for a minute. Interesting quote from Tom Brady Sr., Tom's dad. He said that Bill Belichick is a great coach, but he lacks interpersonal skills. So I know part of that is like, no duh, right? I mean, part of that is, we kind of get it. But what he also went on to reveal was when they went back to New England week 1 against the Eagles. So we remember this game. They honored Tom Brady. They retired his number and the whole nine. Robert Kraft, the Patriots owner, said to Tom Sr., hey, I made a mistake. My bad. I let Bill talk me into believing that Tom was done. He wasn't done. And the rest is history. If I could change it, I would, blah, blah, blah. So I wonder if this tone, the reason I bring it up is if this isn't, what he's running into here. Like, everybody knows the guy is a GOAT.
Mm-hmm.
But will he be able to get along with people now? Will he cede enough power to a front office and ownership? It's not going to be exactly the way he had it in New England. These are the things that he's going to have to think about this offseason if he wants to continue to do this.
Look, ultimately, he's going to have. Ultimately, I believe that the decision is going to be his. For one, whatever he wants to, concede or whatever, it's going to come down to him. But Belichick is a high quality coach. He doesn't have to fight for any job or anything. He's money at the issue. He should have, in my opinion, the luxury of being able to choose the job he wants.
Yeah.
Comfortably without any pressure or judgment. But as far as that whole Tom Brady thing, what is it with people run? I don't understand it, right? We're in this generation, or this time period rather, where people can't keep their mouth closed. Like, it's just, do we have any conversations in confidence anymore?
Not really.
Like, is
very few.
Ad has to be reported, or it's just what happened to
confidentiality.
That's the word I was looking for. I almost said covert. No, people do need to be more covert. You know what I'm saying? It's just we're having to confidentiality or just, hey, by the way, man, I want to talk to you about this too. Man, we're having a conversation between you and I. Like, do I have to definitively say every time, oh, don't tell anybody about this?
Yeah.
I just don't like where we are, in society where every conversation someone's had with somebody gets leaked somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's so annoying to me. It's very high school.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't like it. I don't like it. Like Tom Brady's dad. With all due respect, my man, you old as hell. You don't need to be ripping and running. Your son's retired. Like, what good does a story like that do?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he was probably my guess is it was prompted because he was probably asked about Belichick not getting a job.
Man.
And maybe that was his way of relaying, why he thinks he may not have a job this time around. That's all. I think there's still probably a little bitterness tone.
It's possible
that they let Tom walk too.
I'm sure, and that's his son, right?
Yeah.
So you're always going to have he's biased. But again,
right.
I'm asked a lot of things. But I don't share my feelings on everything.
Same here.
You know what I mean?
Believe me.
So
we don't have enough time if I really started going. Okay.
Yeah.
Just trust me on that, my man. Trust me.
Yeah.
So anyway, Mike McDonald gets the Seahawks job. 36 years old. He is now officially the youngest coach in the NFL, and the Ravens have made a hire. Tone, they have promoted Zach Orr, who was their linebackers coach, to their defensive coordinator. So Zach Orr gets the nod.
That name sounds familiar. Is he a former player?
I don't know if he played or not. He looks like a younger guy from the picture that Baltimore put out to make it official. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I'll look it up right now. Okay. Let's see. Zach Orr. All right, here's his history. He's 31.
Okay.
He played for the Ravens for 3 years.
Yeah, I knew I wasn't tripping. I recognized that name.
He played for the Ravens 14, 15, and 16. He was immediately hired as a coach. He worked as a defensive analyst with them. Then he jumped over to the Jaguars, linebackers coach. Then he jumped back to the Ravens, blah, blah, blah. So he was an undrafted free agent out of college. He went to North Texas.
Okay.
And stuck for a couple of years. So that's his,
Okay. Hey, congratulations to him.
Yep. Yeah, no question. All right. This is a trend that we're going to see more and more of. Jeff Hafley. He was the former head coach at Boston College. He's not anymore. He left there to take the DC job at Green Bay. So he left from a head coaching gig to go be a DC in the NFL. And a lot of the speculation surrounding his leave, and there were two other guys who were head coaches in college football this past year who left to be defensive and offensive coordinator with Alabama. They don't want the headache of being a head coach in college football with the NIL, with the transfer portal, with everything that goes into it. So I'm telling you, man, you're going to see more and more of this, Tone, where guys are just like, I'll go make a nice living being a DC without these headaches in the NFL.
College football has kind of turned into, old baseball. And what I mean by that is, you can buy yourself a championship.
Yep.
Via the nil, right? Obviously baseball doesn't have a salary cap. There was a point in time where people were literally buying championships. So, I just think it is rough waters when you're a program that may not be as prominent as an SEC program. You're trying to recruit kids. You're trying to be competitive. You're trying to put your team in position, trying to put your program in a position to compete for playoff or bowl games. It's hard. And when your program isn't shelling out the money, to motivate these kids to play for you, it makes it more complicated. On the other hand, I'm also not opposed to nil either. I like the fact that these kids can start making money off their likeness. These kids couldn't even get part-time jobs. They couldn't even get a part-time job because of the whole NCAA thing. So, at the end of the day, they're still college students. I know what it's like to be in college, and I was broke a lot. So imagine being a superstar athlete on a major program all these millions and billions of dollars, or all these ad dollars are coming in. Meanwhile, you're going back to your dorm eating fruit cups and Spam.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
it just didn't make sense to me.
There has to be nil. There has to be I 100% agree. What there needs to be is some kind of regulations on it to some degree, and also the transfer portal's gotten way out of control. Like if you bench a kid
it's free
for
agency.
not giving maximum effort, the next day he's announcing on social media he's transferring. Like it's ridiculous. If you're not starting right away as a true freshman, you're out of there. Like there has to be restrictions on transfers, in my opinion. I think it's a big part of it.
Yeah, and
so
also
this is what Dan jumps in. Chip will not stay at UCLA. Alumni don't support football. It's a hoop school. He will be in the NFC. I don't know. He might. I think he already tried it though, and nobody bit, at least this offseason. He put that feeler out there, you know, and nobody took anything off of it.
Yeah,
he might at some point. But.
Yeah, it might be next offseason. He kind of missed the cycle. But I mean, that's a good point. UCLA is known for their basketball, and you know, when it comes to money, it's all about what your boosters, your investors, your alumni. Yeah. What do they prioritize? What do they want to what is the school known for? It's just
I'm not opposed to having the ability to transfer. When guys are on their 8th school, it's like, what are we doing?
No, yeah. That's a problem for me. I feel like each student athlete should have a max transfer. Like it should max out, right? How many typically guys are in college for what? 6 years, depending on if you're redshirted, if you're redshirted or whatnot. So let's just say 6 years.
COVID threw everything off.
Yeah, COVID definitely threw everything off. We're still trying to phase out of that. So I think a max of 3 transfers is reasonable.
Yeah, I would even say 2, but okay. I mean, either way, I just think it's
because there are situations where you're on the team and they're just loaded, and you can't get any time, and then you go to another school and you're able to play. Like Georgia, perfect example. They were so loaded. They had to rotate guys, and guys. I mean, obviously they're not conditioned for the NFL. We're dealing with that now in Philadelphia, but when your team is so loaded. You may have, and it's getting close to that time. You may have to transfer to another school just to maximize your value.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Hey, look, you got it's a business investment in yourself. But what we're also seeing is guys who are in good situations are leaving to take the bag somewhere else.
That is,
and what happens there is it becomes a have and a have not. So yes, Alabama, take all the rest of the big boys, Georgia, whomever, they're going to be fine. It's just going to be harder to have a middle class.
I feel you. Let me ask you this though, right? I got your opinion, and I understand your opinion about the overall sense of it, right? I want to try to put you in it now.
Okay.
You have a son that's currently in college.
Yes.
If he was an athlete, and let's just say Temple was good.
Yeah.
And he played, he was a star player. But Temple's, their nil isn't really moving isn't moving the needle like that.
It's terrible. Yep.
And then he gets an opportunity from, I don't know, Baylor.
Yeah.
Baylor calls and says, look, we got a bag for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You come here, we know it's your final year, but you come here, we can guarantee you 1.5 million in nil. Whereas Temple's only giving you $700K, $500K.
Yeah.
What would you advise your son to do?
Great hypothetical. I would say to him, how important is it for you to graduate from this school that you're at right now? How important are the relationships you have with these people? And I will tell you this, it's a rare opportunity for you to make the kind of money that can set your life off in a very strong way. You need to consider every possibility.
And also, he would have to consider, where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself being an NFL prospect?
Right.
Do you because if this is just football for you and you really don't see it that far, then I would say, yeah, go take the money at Baylor.
Correct.
You know what
That's
I mean?
the other thing. Yeah, the other thing you have to take into account. It's very tricky. It's not easy
Because a lot of these kids, think about it. Not many of these kids make it in the NFL. So
That's
a
right.
lot of these
never
kids are
gonna get
looking
the
at
opportunity. Yeah.
a lot of them are looking at it like, man, I like football, but I don't love it to play in the NFL. But I'm good enough to maximize on this level.
I agree.
Let me go get the money, and then when I graduate, I'll be good. I can set up a business or whatever I want to do. Whatever my plan is. I think a lot of these kids are thinking like that too.
I think so too. And if you can milk as many years of eligibility out of it as you can keep making nil money.
Who's that tight end that's like on year 9? Who
the kid at Miami, McCormick or whatever? He's in his 9th year.
Right.
He started at Oregon. Yeah.
And who's the kid? Isn't Bo Nix like 30? What is he? What is he?
He's been around a long time, Bo Nix. Yeah, he's graduated now, but I know what you mean. I agree with you. Look, I'll give you a real life example of this. EJ Warner is Kurt Warner's son. He played the last 2 years at Temple. He was a lightly recruited kid coming out of they live in Arizona, right? He wasn't on a lot of radars. I think he had like maybe 2 D1 offers. He went to Temple. He won the starting job as a true freshman. He played very well for Temple. The team wasn't good, but he did everything he could do, right? And had a solid sophomore year. He's transferring. Now, he doesn't need the money necessarily, but Temple stinks. I'm keeping it real. He wants to go. I think he went to Rice, maybe. I forget off the top of my head. I think it was Rice. He wants to go have an opportunity to play football a little bit of a higher level. And who can blame him? I don't have fault with him. So I don't want this to sound like I'm anti-transfer. I'm not. And I'm not anti-nil. But I think some kids take advantage of it to the point where it's like you're afraid of a little bit of competition.
Yep, you're right. Right. He's transferred from Temple to Rice.
So, and I wish him nothing but the best. No hard feelings, no nothing. Go do your thing, man. But and some guys, the other part of this, Tone, is some kids get promised something under false pretenses, and they get there, and it's not what they thought.
He went from being a Temple Owl to a Rice Owl.
He stayed with the Owls. Yes, exactly.
that's cute.
The other, there's so many good examples of this, but Troy Aikman went to Oklahoma when he first, his first college stop was Oklahoma, and they ran like a wishbone. And we all know Troy Aikman wasn't a guy who was great with his feet, right?
Right.
And he stayed there for 2 years, and it wasn't for him. He transfers to UCLA. 2 years later, he's the number 1 overall pick. So you got to do what's best for you.
Jalen Hurts, perfect example.
Jalen Hurts is a great example.
He was at Alabama. Got his back. See, what I respect about Jalen Hurts' situation is he stayed, got his bachelor's. At that point, what else does the school have to offer me?
Nothing. You graduated. That was your goal.
Right. He graduated. I know I'm not getting a starting job because you guys are prioritizing Tua. Okay, let me do what's best for me now. That's why I don't like the narrative out there that people say he ran from competition. He was never going to get that job, no matter how well he played. So he transferred to Oklahoma, positioned himself to get drafted in the 2nd round, which then positioned him to get a $250 million deal with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Correct.
All because he made that transfer. What if he doesn't transfer?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then on top of that,
Tua.
and then he stays at Oklahoma, gets his master's. So again, I like the way Jalen Hurts did it. People like to throw a little weird stigma around his leave from Alabama to Oklahoma, but the reality is he wasn't getting that starting job no matter what he did. He stayed an extra year.
Yeah.
Graduated.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Show some respect for the guy's move. So again, all these moves are not created equal. I think out of all the things we touched on, that's what we just ironed out here. That none of these moves are created equal, but there still needs to be some sort of checks and balances.
Yeah, there's
how much you can transfer.
It's too wild west right now. There's got to be some restrictions, limitations. So if not, you're going to drive off the best coaches in college football. You just are. So anyway, all right. Couple other odds and ends. Teddy Bridgewater retiring. Good for him. The guy had a good career.
Great conversation too. That was a good topic we brought up earlier. Like with the nil and all that.
We have a lot of those here, man.
That was a great conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, Teddy Bridgewater retiring, man. Hey, Teddy, man, he had a fascinating career because of the injuries and whatnot, but still found ways to keep him to stay useful. It kind of makes me think about the Arnold Schwarzenegger quote in his documentary. But with his dad, he said, Arnold, no matter what you do, be useful.
Yep.
And he has a book out called Be Useful as well, I think. I actually want to buy it, but nonetheless, Teddy Bridgewater throughout his entire NFL career was useful. And look, he's in the league for what, 10 years, 8 years? How long was Teddy in the league?
I want to say he probably hung around 10 years. He made a nice living for himself.
He made a nice living in the NFL, made a lot of money. Look, everybody's not going to be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or have the Aaron Rodgers or the Peyton Manning career. And a lot of those guys that don't have those kind of careers don't get the respect they deserve, right?
Yeah.
I respect a lot of these guys for the simple fact that you made it to the NFL.
Same.
And you managed to stay in the NFL. You did enough to stay in, to be useful to somebody, to get on someone's roster. You know, you were able to set your family up with generational wealth. How can I disrespect guys like that?
No,
you know what I mean? It's levels to everything in life, and everybody's not going to be a top 10 at their position. But if you're a top 30, top 50, you're going to always have a job.
Micah Parsons speaking. We haven't heard from him since the loss to the Packers. He didn't address the media after.
Well,
the game.
I mean, he was a no-show in that game, so I would keep
it going. Yes,
keep it going. Yeah.
So he says the loss was embarrassing, unacceptable. He says we were just outperformed, out-schemed, however you want to put it, like they had an answer for everything. And people saying, well, why didn't you go to linebacker? Because, they said you could stop the run. Well, guess what? The packages are in for me to go to linebacker. So he's talking, he's not happy with the scheme. There's multiple packages, multiple variations, but I can only play what is called. Whatever the call is, whatever personnel they're putting on, I'm not putting out personnel. I'm not putting out calls. There's nothing coming from me. So blah, blah, blah. Anyway, sounds like he wasn't a big fan of Dan Quinn. So I don't know that he'll be real sad that Dan Quinn's out of here.
That's bullshit. I'm sorry. I'm not rolling with that. Dan Quinn is the reason why we found out you were a good edge rusher. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The guy before did not know how to use you.
Right.
Dan Quinn is the reason why we found out. Dan Quinn is the reason why we consider you one of the more dominant edge rushers. Let's be honest about this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not buying that. You were dominating in the other game. We didn't have issues.
It seemed to work what they were calling for you most of the regular season.
Right. But y'all got your ass whooped by an inferior team, and all of a sudden Dan Quinn was the issue. Stop that. I'm not rolling with that. And now, granted, y'all give up a lot of points, but to me, that looked more like an effort game rather than scheme.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You didn't get a sack, a quarterback hit. Stop playing, Micah. And I got a lot of respect for Micah Parsons. I love his game. You know what I mean? I like the personality, believe it or not. You know what I'm saying? I love players controlling their own narrative. I think Micah is a great player, but I'm not buying that, man. Come on, man. Take some accountability. Y'all came out lackluster.
Well, what I don't like, and again, I know he can only control so much, but they're getting this probably from somewhere. Like when I think it was his dad and his brother started blasting Dak after the game. Like, dude, you're not helping anybody doing that.
Right.
It's just not good for anybody. And again, I know he can't control everything that goes on with his family, but it's just a bad look. Anyway.
Right. Yeah, because sometimes you're doing you, and all of a sudden you see something on the internet about your family saying something. You're like, what the hell? So now you gotta play mediator between your family and say, hey, Dak, look, I just spoke to my peoples. Don't take that from me. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Like CeeDee Lamb, same thing.
Yep.
Because let's be honest, CeeDee Lamb, you had a career year. Why? Because Dak Prescott was willing and dealing. Yeah. So people need to understand where the food come from before they start complaining about what's on the table.
That's a good point, man. Yeah, exactly. You're probably sitting in this very nice house because of my employment with that team. So just remember that. Anyway.
Come on, man.
All right, couple other things of note. Chris Shula, if the last name sounds familiar, it should. He is the grandson of Don Shula. He will be interviewing for the DC job with the Rams or Dolphins. Sorry, Dolphins defensive coordinator. So we'd be going back to his roots. That's according to Tom Pelissaro. He was the Rams linebacker coach and pass rush coordinator this past year. His grandfather was Don Shula, won 2 Super Bowls, 5 AFC championships during his time in Miami. Shula was college roommates. How about this? With Sean McVay, and joined him in Los Angeles when McVay took the gig in 2017, and he's worked his way up. So there you go. Long connections with those two guys there in LA. Yeah. So there's a lot going on. Let's come back. We got into this yesterday, Tone, a little bit, but we didn't really get a chance to kind of finish it off. The landing spots for potential quarterbacks and what teams will prioritize this high in the draft. And there's also guys who are just sort of floating out there. Russell Wilson, we don't know what his future holds in Denver. Justin Fields. Kirk Cousins is a free agent. Does he go back to Minnesota? Will he go elsewhere? And if he does go elsewhere, where could he go? So let's dive into the whole quarterback pool and how this may look also in terms of the draft. And I'll give you where the teams that may need quarterbacks are drafting to. So we'll do all of that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. Tone DeShields, Rob Ellis. We'll be right back.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, we're back. That's Tone. I am Rob. Final segment of the show. All right, so let's look at the landing spots here, potentially, for quarterbacks, because some of these teams do have quarterbacks on the roster who started last year. But let's go AFC and then NFC, Tone. All right, AFC. Patriots. I think we'd all agree we've seen the end of the Mac Jones thing, at least as a starter.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. They hold the number 3 pick. So depending on what Chicago does, which we'll get to Chicago in a little bit, depending on what they do, you could have your choice of the second best quarterback available if you wanted, if you were in the market. So it's possible. Okay. Depending on what happens. I think if I'm Jared Mayo, I know he's a defensive guy at heart. It's probably tempting to grab one of these edge guys or somebody else, there. You got to get quarterback right. Your offense was putrid. It wasn't your defense last year. In fact, your defense was pretty good.
They're going quarterback. They got to go quarterback. There's no other way to slice it.
Yeah.
They got to go quarterback.
Yep, I agree. All day. All day is where they should go. Let's go Steelers. They have the 20th pick. Right now they have Kenny Pickett. They have Mason Rudolph. That neither of those guys work for me. If I'm them, I'm trying to figure out a way to get up, or I'm getting into play for Justin Fields or Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins. I'm getting into that field. If I feel like I can't get the guy that I want that low in the draft, I'm going proven vet.
Right. See, Pittsburgh is such a they're very passive. Like they don't shock people in the deal making stratosphere. So, but I think with Rooney's coming out saying that it's time to start winning some playoff games. I think that was the first shot across the bow.
Mm-hmm. That they may do things a little bit different. Yeah. So I think it's possible. All right. Now the other one is Denver. Russell Wilson's under contract. They have the number 12 overall pick. They benched him at the end of the year, so he didn't get hurt. So it didn't trigger, an injury clause in the 25 season. He's under a monster deal. So if this were to be a trade, somebody would be assuming a lot of money for, what is he, 34 at this point? Somewhere around there?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So that's a little tricky, right? That one's a little bit trickier, but after the way that went last year, I don't see him playing in Denver next year.
Nah, they've already made it clear that they're going to find a way to get rid of him come hell or high water. Now the question is, where is he going to end up? That's the biggest question.
Yeah.
I don't know. When I really look at the NFL, I'm trying to figure out where could he fit fiscally and, from a football perspective as well. That contract is huge. And they just gave it to him basically. Could he end up in Minnesota?
I think Minnesota's possible.
Russell Wilson, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Could Minnesota be in play?
I think Minnesota's in play. I think maybe Atlanta.
Maybe
not in play for Justin Fields. Maybe
possible. It's possible.
The Commanders want to.
Well, no, that wouldn't work.
They're going to draft a quarterback, I think. Yeah.
Maybe the Raiders.
Raiders are a possibility. Yeah, Raiders are a possibility.
Could Russell Wilson end up? Nah, he's not going to. No, that wouldn't work either. The bottom line is, man, it's murky out there for Russell Wilson because of that contract.
Yeah, I agree. It is. All right, let's go to the Raiders. Jimmy G, that's over. I mean, Aiden O'Connell was a rookie last year who was sort of pressed into service to play for them last year. They had the number 13 pick. So, you're in range to either grab up maybe like the third guy or, move up a little bit potentially if there's somebody there you like.
Look, here's the thing, man. Brock Purdy, try to follow me here. Brock Purdy kind of shifted the narrative on how teams are going to start viewing that quarterback position because he's making less than $1 million and less than $100K of his contract is guaranteed, by the way. I think only about $75,000 is guaranteed of his contract. So what I'm saying is our organization is going to start focusing on building their rosters and then grooming or developing a later draft pick at quarterback, try to put the pieces around him and see if he can manage that and just create this ecosystem where he can thrive in. So they're not leveraging so much or so many of their assets in the quarterback position in the first round. Maybe, again, if Brock Purdy wins this Super Bowl, man, it's going to shift the way teams look at the quarterback position.
Yeah. I mean, the Eagles had it in 17, right? I mean, Wentz was a high pick, but he was still on his rookie deal. You had it in 2022 with Hurts.
Yeah.
Who was on a second round contract. So yeah, I mean, it's a big advantage. It is.
Yeah, because if I'm an organization, if I'm not sold on the quarterback class, what incentive do I have to really just jump up? I mean, unless I have an owner that's pressing me, but other than that, what incentive do I have to really just draft a guy because they're saying he's one of the better prospects.
Yeah.
If I'm not enthused with any of the prospects, I'm going to build my team out and then maybe draft a guy in the later rounds. Maybe following a guy who maybe fouled a favor or diamond in the rough. You never know. I'm willing to roll the dice on that than draft a guy high that I'm not even completely sold on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, all right. Now here's another tricky one. The Jets.
The Jets are very tricky.
You got Rodgers at 41 next year coming off an Achilles. If there's somebody you really like who let's say falls, one of the quarterbacks for whatever reason starts falling towards you, what do you do?
If I'm them, I'm drafting a quarterback somehow, some way. I don't if it is second round, third round. I got to leave that draft with at least 2 quarterbacks. I need to give myself a sample size. You know what I'm saying? I want these guys in there competing. To be the number 2 and study Rodgers as much as you can because this might be his last year in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. That's like a time bomb, that whole thing. With that story that came out with how dysfunctional they were, there's a lot that could happen there. All right, let's hop over to the NFC now. The Commanders, they have the number 2 pick.
See, they're interesting too because are they going to go quarterback or do they feel like they want to continue to nurture Sam Howell? If it's me, I'm going quarterback.
I'm going quarterback too. I know he killed the Eagles, but I don't think so. I mean, he threw for almost 4,000 in his defense, almost 4,000 yards, but 21 touchdowns, 21 interceptions, 78 passer rating, 63 completion. That's not great, to say the least.
He started off all right, and then he kind of fell off a cliff.
He did. It sort of strikes me. It's hard to say because it was only his second year and his first year as a starter, but strikes me as could play a long time as a backup guy.
I see what you mean. One of those guys that can, get you through maybe a couple games, a few games. If a quarterback gets hurt, maybe he goes 2-1 in a 3-game stretch. Maybe he goes 2-2 in a 4-game stretch.
Yeah, it's kind of what it feels like to me. I wouldn't if I'm them. I'm drafting one.
I'm drafting one as well.
Because you don't often get the opportunity at number 2.
Could Washington be in play for Russell Wilson?
Maybe.
Josh Harris. I could if I'm him, I want to get this team relevant and get this fan base excited as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Maybe make it a splash for Russell Wilson. You got Terry McLaurin. You got Jahan Dotson. You got a solid running back room. Your O-line is obviously the question. I feel like you got a solid defense. You bring Russell Wilson in, it can definitely reinvigorate, some interest in the franchise.
It could, and it's more of an immediate way to try to win now for sure.
Mm-hmm. You're immediately competing in your division if you bring in Russell Wilson.
The only thing is, this particular year, if you're sitting at 2, if Chicago trades out of that 1, you get the pick of the litter who you want. Of the quarterbacks coming out. You really love Caleb Williams that much, or I don't know, Drake May, whatever. You get whoever you want.
Yeah, you know what? You draft the quarterback, you sit him for a year. See, I wouldn't rush. I wouldn't
do that. You could play Howell this year. Yeah, you could play Howell this year.
Yeah,
yep.
I wouldn't rush this thing at all. You know what I mean? No, me drafting the kid number 1 or number 2 overall, it's a clear indication that he's going to be my future.
Yeah,
and Sam Howell's going to know that immediately. So I'm never opposed to sitting a quarterback, especially. I'm never opposed to sitting my quarterback for the first full year. Just let him, watch. Every now and again you come across a CJ Stroud who hits the ground running.
Yep.
Right. Every now and again. But Mahomes sat the whole first year. He played the last game of the season, something like that. But he sat the first year. And I'm trying to think who else sat their first year for the most part. Jalen Hurts sat for the most part, and then he came in, in the final 4 games. It's
I think there's benefits to it. Jordan Love sat. Look how well Jordan Love.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Yes, Jordan Love. I was trying to find another name. Jordan Love. Yes, he sat for the first couple years actually.
Yep. All right. Here's a tricky one. Chicago. You have number 1 and you have number 9. You're sitting there with 2 top 10s, and you have Justin Fields. So you can either trade him and really go nuts loading up, or you take, if it's Caleb Williams, you take him at 9, or sorry, at 1. And then at 9, you can still get a quality, whatever you're looking for here. Receiver, O-lineman, edge.
Yeah.
Although they
the
made a
thing,
couple
man.
moves for edge rushers. Yeah.
Here's the thing. Chicago, they're idiots. So it's do I trust Chicago with the 1st and the 9th overall pick in the NFL draft? Do I trust them really? And then you got Justin Fields. Look, the first domino that has to fall is, what are you gonna do with Justin Fields? That's the first domino that has. This is the first decision.
Yeah, and I would hope you have your mind made up already. Now, some of this is what you get in return.
Yes, I personally feel like a decision like that, you better have your mind made up well before draft day.
Yeah.
If you on draft day and you have your mind made up, you're in dangerous territory.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Hey, listen to this story real quick, and we'll go back to the quarterbacks.
Yes.
So a woman was on a flight from Baltimore to Phoenix and had a mid-flight medical emergencies. The doctor and the nurse attending to her couldn't find a strong pulse. Her blood pressure, was extremely low, and she required oxygen to breathe. It was very scary. A man in the aisle seat popped up. Could it be her blood sugar? I have a diabetic testing kit. And it was Mark Andrews from the Ravens. So he instructed the medical personnel on how to use it and how to get the testing kit going. Paramedics met the flight as soon as it landed. Andrews deplaned quietly, no fanfare, just kind of got out of there. But if he didn't have that, this woman, who knows what may have happened to that woman.
So did it end up being?
Yeah, she was okay. That's what it ended up being. And he was the one who, he was ready with his kit. I guess maybe he's a diabetic. I don't know, but
no, he is. Mark Andrews checks his he has to check
his insulin. Yeah,
his insulin after every time he's on the field.
Okay,
he checks his insulin
whenever they come off the field. Yeah,
whenever he comes off the field, he checks his insulin. He
Wow.
checks it. He checks it about 6, 7, 8 times a game.
Okay, that's pretty cool though that he stepped up and helped that lady.
I heard about that story. I heard about that story with him and his. Yeah, he has to check his insulin several times a game. I don't know what type of diabetes he has though.
I don't know either. Yeah,
but he has to check it regularly, and that's a pretty cool story, man.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him. Very cool.
Not all heroes wear capes. Sometimes they wear Ravens jerseys.
All right, let's go to the Vikings. They own the 11 pick, and Kirk Cousins is up. He's a free agent. Do they bring him back at a lower number?
I think Minnesota's looking for a change of pace.
Okay.
I think they are. I think Kurt is going to get paid this offseason for sure. I think he's because the
there's so few. Yeah.
The franchise tag now is I think $35 million for quarterbacks. Estimated going into the 2024 offseason. I think it's about $35 million.
Yeah.
So I think Kurt is going to easily get 40 million on the open market easily because of the nature of the position. He plays the position well. He just chokes every now and again. But he's going to put up the numbers. He's going to move the ball. He's going to have you in every game that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
But don't feed him after midnight. You know what I mean? It's like that. Like he just can't get things done on prime time.
Yeah. All right. Well, that one's going to be one to watch. That's for sure. All right. Beyond that, real quick, and I'll get back to to a couple other teams. The NBA has fined the Sixers $75,000 for a misleading injury report prior to the Denver game.
Oh, the Joel Embiid thing.
Yep, violation of didn't list his injury early enough, I guess, aka not early enough for the gamblers, and then they sat him right before the game started.
Mm-hmm. It's always about the gamblers. Everything comes down to money.
Yes, sir. Yep, always does. That's for sure. All right. Back to where we were. So let's jump off the Vikings. Let's go to the Falcons. Number 8 pick, Desmond Ridder. Yeah, Desmond Ridder. I'm not a big fan, but he was their, what was he, a second or third a couple years back?
Yeah,
he's there. Maybe they're in the market to get, one of the vets. Maybe they're in the market to draft somebody. Why does Russell Wilson feel like a possibility there, or Justin Fields from Chicago?
No, I'm with you on that. Russell Wilson actually seems. The more you say it, the more I start to believe it. Because let's be frank about this. Russell Wilson ain't going nowhere that Sierra don't sign off on.
Correct. She'd like Atlanta. Yeah.
She would love Atlanta. Trust me. And I think she's from there. She's from that area, if I'm not mistaken. I think Atlanta, let me double check that. But regardless, she's I said she.
He's from Virginia. I don't know where she's from originally. I think and I also think he was an Army brat, so I think he moved around, but I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't tell you where she's from.
Yep, Atlanta, Georgia. She's from Atlanta, Georgia. Yep. I think we just found his landing spot.
Could be.
You heard it here. You heard it here first. We have no insider knowledge, but Rob and I are putting our name on it here.
Okay.
We're putting our name on this.
We are.
Russell Wilson will end up in Atlanta.
Okay.
You heard it here first, you guys.
I like it. All right, we got a little less than 10 here to go and show. Let's hit a couple other things here. Shockingly, Ben Simmons didn't play last night. He came back from the 38 game layoff, played the other night. Everybody was excited, but he got a knee contusion towards the end of the game that he played in, and sat last night as the Brooklyn Nets lost to Phoenix. Kevin Durant's return. By the way, they gave Kevin Durant a return video. He was there for 5 minutes. We don't have to give everybody. What are we doing? Not everybody deserves a video, okay?
Everybody does.
He even said, "Don't give
deserve
me
a
one."
video.
In Kevin Durant's defense, he was like, "Don't do it. I don't need it. Please. I'm good." And they still insisted on doing it. Like, no,
because people are always trying to kiss ass and satisfy some kind of bottom line. Listen, man, you're right. I feel like I've been seeing too many of those. Like Damian Lillard returned to Portland last night. He deserved that.
Oh, 100%. That's
Damian
totally
deserved.
different.
They deserve that.
Yeah.
But if I'm there for a hot second, the hell are you giving me a video for? Like Bradley Beal returned to Washington. He deserves a video. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. That happened earlier in the season. Somebody else returned somewhere, and they gave them this little corny ass video.
Yeah.
Can't remember, but yeah, you're right. I'm with you on that. Please, okay. It's weird.
All right. The Bucks, speaking of Dame Lillard, 0-2 under Glenn Rivers. 0-2. Let's keep it going, people. Let's keep it going. See the Bucks up next.
Hey, listen, man, it makes me think about the whole James Harden thing when he got traded. They were bad at first, so let's just and now I think they're third in the West, so they're winning the now. They're figuring it out. We'll see how far they go
at Dallas Saturday.
The
Clippers have come on. They've come on.
Yeah. We'll see if the Buccaneers can come on. Look, I said Buccaneers. Jeez, the Bucks.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see the Milwaukee Bucks can come on. Granted, they still have a top 3 record in their conference, so
they're top.
That's why that's why firing their head coach Adrian Griffin was like, I think you fired him because your superstars didn't like him.
Yep.
It's just that simple for me.
Like Giannis being surprised. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also their defense was lackluster. But I mean, look, you traded Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard. I could have told you your defense is going to fall off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're. Do you realize the Sixers are the number 5 seed now?
Well, they were pretty close in between.
It's close. They're only a game back of 3.
Yeah,
they're half game back of 4. Yeah.
Even when they were the 3rd seed, I think it was like a game, a half a game.
The Knicks are high. Knicks have won 8 in a row and 9 of 10. So they've made a real move here. They're now 31-17. They're the 3 seed.
Yeah. Somebody probably gonna think I'm a hater, but as long as you got Julius Randle, I feel like you can't get anywhere but the second round.
Yeah.
I think Julius Randle's game is.
I think it's limited. I think he's a ball stopper.
He's a ball stopper, and I think I don't mean no harm, man. He thinks he's a better shooter than where he really is.
He does. The worst thing that can happen is he hits an early 3 because then he starts launching a little bit too much.
That's the worst thing that can happen. Just get to the paint, man. Be aggressive. Play in the mid-range game. Shoot your spot up 3s when it comes to you. But other than that,
yeah,
you know, I've never been a fan of Julius Randle's game.
He's not I like a lot of the guys on that team, but I'm not.
I'm a Jalen Brunson guy. Jalen Brunson made that team relevant.
How can you love Jalen Brunson? Impossible not to love that guy. Listen to this free throw disparity last night. Purdue played Northwestern and went to overtime. Purdue won at Purdue. Purdue shot 46 free throws to Northwestern's 8. 46 to 8.
That sound like an NBA game with those free throws.
That is unbelievable. And Chris Collins, Northwestern's coach, Doug Collins' son, lost his mind at the end in overtime. He ran onto the floor, got ejected, kind of did the heel move of getting the crowd going as they're screaming and, at him as he walked off. But hard not to, fault him.
I would be pissed.
Yeah.
I would, especially if I have a front row seat to see that you're clearly favoring another team. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if, is there any sort of regulatory council to look at that game
every official in the NBA and in college gets reviewed by their at the end of the game, every couple games, whatever, and they go through it. They all get is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Mm-hmm. That has to be investigated. It makes no sense. How many was it again? What was the disparity?
8.
46 to 8.
So they shot 38 more. How
do we justify that in any sport?
Well, I think a couple things. It's at Purdue. They have Zach Edey, who's Godzilla-ish. He's gigantic. And he got to the free throw line a lot. But that is an extreme. If it was 35 to 15,
Here's the problem. Here's what I think that Collins' problem. I don't think his problem is the fact that you called all those fouls on my team. I think his real problem is, hold on, wait. Where are the fouls on them?
Right.
Right? Okay, yeah, they shot 46 free throws. Fair enough. Where are our free throws? That's the real problem. Because if they shot 46 and, like you said, if you shot 15 or even 20, all right, whatever. But to only allow my team, you basically sent my team to the free throw line on 4 different occasions. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter. The math not mathing, Rob.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that, the other thing that Chris Collins pointed out was hey, we weren't just standing around the perimeter, not being aggressive, not launching, just launching threes or whatever. Our guys were taking it to the basket. We just weren't getting the calls throughout the course of the night. So I think that's one. When you have an extreme like that, there's a red flag that's going to go up. Collins will get fined and all that, but the NCAA is going to look at this one, I think.
They should,
because it's that big a deal. All right. Elsewhere, Caitlin Clark of Iowa becomes the number 2 all-time scorer in the history of the NCAA for Division I. She's around 100 points off of Kelsey Plum, who has the most ever. She also became the highest scorer in the history of the Big Ten last night. She's on a streak of 8 or something straight games with 30 plus points. So,
well, I didn't know Kelsey Plum held the record for most points in women's basketball.
Yeah. She was phenomenal at Washington. I think it was Washington or Washington State. She was incredible. Yeah.
I had no idea.
So, yeah. But she'll, barring injury, she'll break it. And I'll tell you the other interesting thing.
She'll break it easily.
Fox is putting a lot of games now in prime time, women's games. South Carolina, not just Fox, the networks are. LSU, obviously Iowa because she's a big draw, but it's gotten the game, it's grown the game in terms of exposure, and they're getting a lot more looks at their game, which they should. So
they should. Listen, if you really watch some games, them ladies be hooping.
No doubt.
They really good. They really hoop.
Yeah, man.
And they're more fundamentals because they have to be, because this, the athleticism is obviously not, man athleticism, but they're ultra skilled.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? These girls, they deserve all the views they can get, and I think it was catapulted by last year's final March Madness.
Great game. Yeah. LSU and Iowa. Yeah, it was. LSU and Iowa was great.
Yep.
It was great.
It was awesome. It was box office.
It was, no question. All right. Thanks to everybody in the chat, everybody streaming, everybody listening. Don't go anywhere. Tone has got you with Dan Cilio for the national football show. And everybody enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Tone, it was fun as always, my friend.
As always, my friend. I appreciate you.
Have yourself a great Thursday and talk to you.
Yes, sir.
See ya.